As the machine tested Ning's stats, a variety of people watched him. The scouters were watching because it was their job, but the majority of the rest were watching because the person taking the test was Chinese. And they had to wait for a while to see the result. The staff members came to the front to look at the device as it took an abnormally long time to show up result. "I'm sorry, it's taking a while. Please stay right there," the staff said. Ning shrugged and stayed there. He had to wait for nearly 2 whole minutes before the results came back. Strength. SSS, speed. SSS, mana. B. The moment the stats appeared on the screen, everyone in the room collectively lost their minds. Hi-Ah was too shocked to say anything. All she could do was rub her eyes and look at the stats again. She even wondered if she was seeing double for some reason. Wait. Is that 2 S's or 3 S's? That's 3 S for sure. Either that or I'm going blind. Wait, that's double SSS. I have never heard of something like this before at all. Is the machine broken by any chance? Maybe, that's the only answer, right? The group went from being shocked at the result to being suspicious to ask for a retest. They asked someone else to be tested before him just to make sure the machine wasn't broken. At the same time, security came outside to check for any suspicious equipment Ning might be carrying with him. Ning stepped to the side and let himself be tested. He was even taken to another room and made to strip naked before they searched him thoroughly. After not finding anything on him, they let him back out. By now, the machine was tested and they found out that the mana stone that was powering the machine had nearly depleted. Was it really the mana stone? A staff member asked another one. Didn't we just see it was the mana stone? The other person asked. But doesn't a mana stone last for nearly a week most of the time? I changed this one this morning, the first person said. Then you must have taken a defective one, the second person replied. The first person couldn't think of anything else to say, so he turned back to see Ning's test done again. However, this time around as well, his test wasn't done quickly at all. Once again it took the same amount of time before the results came. Everyone immediately looked at the result again. Their surprise would have been equally as big as the first time had the result being the same. However, the result changed this time around. Strength. SSS, speed. SSS, mana. A. His mana stat had changed from B to A. His results were better this time around. Everyone immediately started shouting over each other to voice out their surprise. The scouters didn't even wait for the official result before jumping in front of each other to ask for Ning to join their guild. Their contract terms were simple. It would be whatever he wanted. The guards had to bring order to the crowd before the staff members made a judgment on the results. It seems the result is real, so you can go take the test, they said. Ning nodded and left the hall to go take his test. He arrived in the massive room with the judges sitting on the balcony. The judges had heard the commotion too, and now they knew why the men and women were going crazy outside. Is there no mistake? They asked the staff that brought them the result. We tested twice, the result was the same, actually, the second time was better, the staff said. Fear not, we detected no cheating. I see, the judges said and turned to look at Ning. Do you use any sort of weapon? I do, but I can also do without, Ning said. We would like it if you used a weapon. We want to see you fight at your full potential, the judges said. Okay, Ning said. I can use a spear, where should I get that? There in that closet. There are a bunch of ordinary weapons. Choose one to your liking, they said. Ning opened the closet that was in the corner of the room and saw that it was full of weapons of every single type. Short swords, long swords, great swords, sabers, katanas, spears, halberds, axe, daggers, throwing knives, glaives, etc. Everything and anything he could think of was there for him to use. Ning took a simple spear with a small blade and closed the closet. He got back into place and looked towards the judges. The main judge of the three was about to give a task when he paused. If the stats results they were handed were true, then there was no way any of their expensive puppets could ever survive. Can you attack softly, and slowly ramp up? We don't want you to destroy the puppet in front of you, they said. Oh, don't worry about it. I have restoration magic. Anything I destroy, I can fix as long as it is something without life, Ning said. Well, maybe not mana stone either, but you guys have spare, right? Is that true? The judge asked. He had never heard of such an amazing type of magic. We would like to see it then, the head judge said. Ning nodded and changed his hold on the spear. Instead of holding it normally, he held it in a throwing stance and shot the spear at the puppet with moderated strength. The spear left his hand, leaving behind a sonic boom as it moved faster than the speed of light. The judges didn't even see the spear leave his arm. All they saw was his hand blur, and then they were knocked back due to the shockwave his attack had generated. Oops, that was still too hard, he thought. He quickly jumped up to the judges and helped them get back up. Then, he jumped back to where he had not only destroyed the puppet but had torn up the ground for at least 15 more meters. Even the walls at the back were showing cracks now. Ning put his arms forward and suddenly a magic circle appeared in front of them. They were real magic circles as Ning had asked the system to give him knowledge on the spell to revert time itself. The magic spell had a few requirements. The changes he made couldn't be more than 2 minutes in the past as even Mana found it hard to follow entropy backward for that long. The second requirement was that the target couldn't be a living being. Other than that, the larger the target, the higher the mana would be needed. The judges looked with shock as everything that was destroyed just moments before flew back to its original place as everything was restored to how they were. The puppet was perfect, the ground was untouched, and the spear was back in Ning's hand. He looked at the judges and asked, "What should I do next?" Ning tested his speed. All he had to do was dodge the balls that fell from the ceiling. There would be red balls amongst those that fell, and those balls he would have to grab and put on a basket that was to the side of the room. Ning waited for the balls to start dropping. "Begin," the judges shouted. Suddenly, 10 different balls fell at scattered speeds. Ning slowed down his perception and simply walked around as he dodged the balls. He saw a red one starting to fall and walked next to it. He grabbed the ball and checked for another red one. Seeing that there were none, he took it to the basket before returning. He did that for 15 seconds, and just as he thought it would end, the panels on the floor and the walls opened up and started shooting balls at him as well. Ning was surprised, but he wasn't caught off guard. He simply dodged those balls too while catching all the red ones. After 15 more seconds, he was done. "So, how did I do?" he asked the judges. The poor judges had no answer as they could barely see the blur that was Ning. They had to wait for the slowed down footage to even see if he had touched any of the falling balls or not. After a while of checking, they simply had to give him the pass. The final test would be to test his ability to fight multiple monsters at once, but given that he was so fast and so strong, the judges saw no point. You've passed it all. Congratulations," they said. "Thank you," Ning said and left. The judges looked at the score and sighed. A double SSS hunter and one that's not an apostle. "Do you guys think that would cause any problem?" the head judge asked, but the other had no answers. "I guess we will have to wait and see then." Ning walked back out into the main hall where his double SSS rank was announced to the group of 30 or so people. Each one of them went into a frenzy again when they realized that they had indeed witnessed history here. Ta was simply too shocked about everything to come forward and congratulate Ning. Even if she weren't, she would never have made it there before the scouters had fully covered him from all sides. Ning couldn't take a single step without stepping on some random person, so he stood where he was and waited for them all to be done with their words. Once they were done, he turned towards the men and women that wore a white coat with devil embroidery at the back. "I want to ask you something," he said to the White Devil Guild's scouters. Yes, what can we do for you, sir?" they asked. "I hear there is a dungeon under your guild's control where I can find the cure for mana poisoning. Is that true?" Ning asked. "The S-ranked gate?" "Yes, that is true, sir," they said. "I was access to it as long as it takes me to find the cure," Ning said. The men and women looked at each other. "Does that mean you will be joining our guild?" they asked with a hopeful look. "Yes," Ning said. "I have some other requirements, but I will join." "Thank you, sir," they said. "Would you mind coming with us to the guild to talk with our heads? We can't make decisions on our own. Or if you are busy, just give us a way to contact you." "No, I'm not busy. I can go with you right now," Ning said. "Cousin, do you want to come with me for a moment?" Hi-Ah was still quite speechless to make any well-thought-out judgment. "Come on, it will be fun," he said and walked along with the people from the White Devil Guild. Hi-Ah went along without even knowing she was going along. They all got into a car that wasn't Ning's and drove off. Just as they left, Ning spread his divine sense as far as he could and instantly covered all of the city. He searched for a moment before finding the person he was looking for. "I'm going off on a little side quest. If you are done roaming around, You can either go by car or come to me, Ning said. I will do as you say, master, White Depth Field replied out loud so Ning could hear him. We will be done soon, Safandra said. Once Ning's divine sense left off, White Depth Field went back to looking at the jewelry. The craftsmanship on these is terrible, but I would like to take some back as a memento for my family, White Depth Field said. That one is not bad, Safandra said. Well, if you say so, White Depth Field said. Mr. Shopkeeper, how much money for this one? He spoke in crude Korean that barely registered in the shopkeeper's ears. This one, sir? This one costs 2.2 million won. Should I package it for you? The shopkeeper asked. 2.2 million? Do I have that much money? White Depth Field wondered as he brought out a fat stack of thousands of 50,000 won notes. He counted for a bit and brought out 44 of those notes and handed it to the shopkeeper. Yes, package them, he said. Safandra looked around the room and saw the eyes of everyone in the room on White's money. You might have made a mistake showing so much money out in the open, she said. Worry not, dear miss. Didn't master simply make this money? There would be nothing to worry about even if we lost it, he said. Well, that's true, Safandra said. You still have yet to tell me how Ning found a young man like you and even managed to dominate you. As far as I know, he didn't dominate anyone in the other universe. White Depth Field grabbed the package that the shopkeeper had handed him and placed it into his soul space. Oh, did you not figure out yet that I'm not a human? He asked. What? Safandra was confused. What are you if not human? She asked. I'm a beast, of course, White Depth Field said. Did you really not know I'm a tiger? Honestly, I was asleep for nearly 100,000 years, so I only know of what happened after I came here. Before that is a mystery, she said. So, tell me what happened exactly. Did you try and beat Ning or something and he got angry? Hee. Oh no, it was nothing like that, a hand fell around White's shoulders just as he was speaking. Safandra noticed it too and slowly peeked out of his clothes. A few other men appeared around White as well, getting close to him. Hey brother, long time no see. How about we catch up on old times in that alleyway over there, the man who had his hand around White said. I don't know you, do I? White asked. Tisk, this one's mind doesn't seem to be working, the man said with a peal of laughter in his voice. Of course, you don't know me. Shut the fuck up, and come with us. What is going on? White asked the men without moving. He was by the sidewalk and the bystanders were starting to notice them. One of the men pulled a knife on him and placed the tip on his back. Shut up and move or I will push this knife into your back, the man said. White was appalled. Why are you doing this? He asked. He couldn't understand the reason at all. After all, he hadn't offended anyone as far as he remembered. Did I do something to make you guys angry? If so, I want to say sorry, White said as he cupped his fists. The hell? You looking to fight? The ruffians asked. They mistook his cupped hands for someone preparing to fight? Of course not. I can't hurt anyone, White said. Those were the words Ning had told him. After all, he was to end any conflict without violence. Damn right you can't, you coward Westerner, they said. Now walk to the alley or we will stab you right here. Wait, I still don't understand what is going on here, White said. What did I do for you all to come after me? Are you dumb or acting dumb? How could you not understand? Safandra asked. They must have been tipped off about your money by the people in the jewelry store. Now they want your money. Huh? White was still confused. He suddenly turned towards the men and they quickly backed off while pulling out more knives in daylight. Are you guys trying to rob me of my money? He asked. The hell did you think this was then? A reunion? Someone asked. But Master said there are rules here like you can't steal from people, White said. Are you guys not bound by the rule? What? Why the hell would we care about some stupid rules? The men asked. I see, White said as he rubbed his chin. So I was mistaken, huh? When Master said people weren't allowed to do bad things here, I thought they were bound by oath or something. So it was just some law. Why would you ever think otherwise? Safandra asked. Where I came from at the moment, I am not allowed to harm any humans there, so I thought it might be a similar situation here, White said. I'm sorry for the confusion. Then, he turned towards the few men in front of him and suddenly his expression changed from foolish to mocking. Did you idiots really think you could rob me? He started laughing. This bastard is crazy, the men said. Just stab him before the cops arrive. Just as the men were about to attack, White shook his head. Suddenly, the men dropped to their knees. Gravity seemed to be amplified for them. They struggled to even stay on their knees and dropped flat to the ground. White's cultivation aura was so strong that these men could do absolutely nothing to him. He took a single step forward and the pressure on the men increased. Another step and it got stronger. Any more and the men would have their bones broken in many places. Fortunately for them, White stopped and crouched down so they could see his face. Pray to your gods and say thanks to my master. If it weren't for him telling me not to hurt anyone in any conflict, I would have had 4 corpses on the ground in front of me. A chopped up one at that too, White said. And I don't know how humans of this world taste, but I wouldn't mind feasting on you either. He looked at the third man from the right who seemed to have soiled himself. Well, maybe not you. The men on the ground feared White now to the point that they didn't even dare look into his eyes. White moved his hands and suddenly yellow threads appeared from him that wrapped around all 4 men. He stood up and the aura lifted. The men could finally breathe properly. Now, what should we do with them? White said while he put on a thinking face. Please spare us. Don't kill us. We beg you, the men started asking. I already said I won't kill you, idiots, didn't I? White said. I was told to solve any conflict without violence. This is my way without using violence. Just as he said that, a few police cars arrived and cops came out of the car with their guns in their hands. Get away from them, they shouted at White. Oh, are you guys the authorities of this world? You should punish them for what they. Get away from them, they shouted again. Are you talking to me? White was surprised, but I didn't do anything. Usage of awakened powers in the public is a major crime. You will have to come with us, one of the cops said. And what about them? White asked as he pointed at the 4 people that came for him. They will be dealt with too, the cop said. You guys take them away. You should gather witness reports. I will take him. Yes, sir, the cops replied. The cop took White and placed him in the car before taking him away to the police station. Safandra laughed as quietly as she could while White put on a sad face. I hope Master doesn't get mad with me for this. Haha, you got caught by the police here, on the first day of being here too. I will have way too much fun talking about it to him, she said. White had nothing to say and just drooped his head. Around the same time, Ning arrived in front of the White Devil Guild's main headquarters. It was a massive office building that was covered with glasses on the side. A few people were at the front of the building already as they had been made aware of his arrival beforehand. Sir Ning, please come with us. Our leader is waiting for you in the building, the man said. Oh, and who might you be? Ning asked. Haha, I'm a nobody really. Just a rank A rookie, unlike you sir, the man said. You're Li Kyung-yun, Tae Hai-ah said from the side. Oh, sister seems to be aware of me. I'm flattered, the man said. You must be Tae Hai-ah, then. I heard you went up from B rank to A rank today. Please accept my congratulations. Thank you, Hai-ah said softly. Let's go on now. I don't want to keep either sir or our leader waiting, the man said. Ning and Hai-ah entered the building, and together with Li Kyung-yun, they entered the elevator that was inside. There were 26 floors in the building, and Li Kyung-yun pressed the button numbered 26. The elevator took them to the top where it opened up to reveal a hallway with a single door at the end with some sofas outside. Li went up to the door and knocked. Leader, Sir Ning has arrived, he said. Send him in, a female voice spoke from inside. Please go in, sir, Li said. Miss Hai-ah can wait outside. No, she's coming with me, Ning said and called his cousin to come with him. Together, they entered the room. Ning entered the room and was quite surprised to see how wide and open it was. The whole room was white, brightly lit by the glass wall on one side, with devilish paintings hanging on the wall. The sofas were white as well and they were on either side of the room. One of the sofas was empty, while the other one had 2 people sitting in it, who immediately got up the moment Ning entered. An older man with white hair moved first as he arrived next to Ning. You must be the new SSS-ranked hunter, Ning Ruigong. It's nice to meet you, the man said. Ning shook the man's hand. Who might you be? He asked. The man almost looked offended. Ahem, I'm Han Ki-yoon, the vice leader of the White Devil Guild, he said. Ah, nice to meet you, Ning said. Then you must be Kim Min-soo, the leader of the White Devil Guild. Ning turned to look at the tall girl with pitch black hair. Her white clothes fit her tightly, revealing the figure within. I don't like wasting time on nonsense, so let us get to the point, the girl said. What will it take you to join our guild? Ning smiled. Access to the S-ranked dungeon to find a cure for mana poisoning, and a month's break before I start, he said. The girl narrowed her eyes. And? She asked. No end. That's it, Ning said. As an SSS-ranked hunter, I doubt I will have to worry about money anyway. Besides, I doubt you will pay me low. That's true, she said, but she couldn't help but hold suspicion. How was she to trust that he would keep his word after entering the dungeon? Even if he did break his words, who would say anything to the only SSS-ranked hunter that was not an apostle? Kim Min-soo gave some thought to her predicament and asked, how am I to trust that you won't just leave after I give you access to the S-ranked dungeon? Ning thought for a moment. What exactly would my job be here if I were to join? He asked. Hunting dungeons, taking sponsors, going to talk shows, and the rest, she said. We will use your image as much as your strength. Huh, that's surprising, Ning said. Well, I don't have much of an image at the moment, so let's just talk about my strength. How many dungeons will I have to hunt to make you give me access to the S-rank dungeon? He asked. The dungeons aren't so easily available that you can get as many as you want. We have to make parties to enter it. Even I might get into trouble if I were to go in alone, she said. I won't, Ning said. You can't be sure, the girl said. I can, Ning replied. The girl scoffed in return. She had seen such arrogance in newcomers before who thought just because they got a high rank, they were immune to everything. She had seen them despair inside the dungeon when things were even the slightest bit south. Ning gave her the same vibes. She decided to show him this despair before it was too late. Fine, let's go see just how strong you are, she said and walked out the door. Great, Ning said as he turned around. Isn't it great? He asked his cousin. Hai-Ah was way too dumbfounded by the conversation to say anything. In fact, the whole day had been way too over the top for her that from time to time, she would think she was dreaming. As such, he blankly followed behind Ning, unsure where he was taking her. The group went down the elevator again and went out of the building before getting in a car to go somewhere else. The S-ranked dungeon was located about a kilometer away from the headquarters. It was the first dungeon to form in Daegu City, and as such, it was the center of the city, surrounded by massive walls that had people constantly guarding it. The dungeons grew in power over time, and it was about 3 years ago that the originally A-ranked dungeon had become an S-ranked dungeon. Once the White Devils Guild took over it, they had been clearing it day after day, as quickly as they could so that they didn't have to suffer another dungeon break. If an S-ranked dungeon were to break, it would spell the death of the entire city before help could even arrive. The car stopped by the gate and the four of them walked out. Ning, Hai-Ah, Kim Min-soo, and Han Ki-yoon walked into the compound, and Ning finally saw the 5 meters tall gate that swirled with reddish energy. That's the gate to the S-rank dungeon? He asked. Is this your first time seeing one? The girl asked. This is my first time seeing a gate at all, he said without thinking much. Wait, this is your first time seeing a dungeon gate? The White Devil leader couldn't help but ask. Don't look too much into what I say, Ning said. I like to spew nonsense sometimes. So, should we enter? The leader looked at one of the people that was already standing next to them with a tablet and asked, is anyone in there? The beta party entered about 3 hours ago. They should be coming out any minute now, the person said. Cancel anyone that's scheduled for after them. Actually, no, just remove a few so I and him can go in as well, she said. Wait, why would you want to bring more people? It will be fine with just me, you, and her, Ning said as he pointed to his cousin. Me? I can't go into an S-ranked dungeon. I'm only an A-ranked hunter, she said quickly. Doesn't matter. I will be there so you won't be hurt, Ning said. That's not possible. You will have to focus on the battle. You can't afford to protect someone else, she said. Well, then you should protect her. You are going in as well, aren't you? Ning asked. The girl frowned. I can't help her either. I need to be ready if you are overwhelmed. I might end up having to fight the dungeon on my own. That would be quite hard if I have to protect 2 people that have never been to an S-ranked dungeon before, she said. Well then, Ning thought for a moment. I guess I will just have to get her a guard of her own then. Ning's divine sense suddenly spread everywhere but inside the dungeon gate. It reached all over the city as he started searching for White Depthfield and Safandra. When he finally did find them, he couldn't help but be surprised. What the hell? Why are you in the police station? He asked. White Depthfield was in the middle of an argument regarding his nationality when he heard Ning. Master, I took your advice and tried to end a conflict without violence. I used some technique to bind my attackers, but these authorities say that I misused my awakened abilities out of the dungeon and now I should go to prison or something, he replied. Ning sighed. Forget that. Come to my location quickly. I have some task for you. Oh, okay, White said, and in the blink of an eye, disappeared from the police station. White arrived inside the compound so fast that the only person who noticed his arrival other than Ning was the female SSS-ranked apostle. Her eyes went wide and a pool of dark energy gathered in her hands, ready to strike, but Ning put his hands forward. He's with me. Only then did the rest of the people there notice him. They spoke around, wondering how someone managed to infiltrate their most secure place without triggering any alarm. Ha ha ha, Ning, you should have seen him. He spent the entire time in the station trying to explain why he has a Chinese name when he's clearly not Chinese. That police thought he was lying about his name. Safandra laughed out loud in Ning's ears as she moved from White to Ning. Why would they be? The wind picked up as the dungeon made a buzzing sound. Ning turned around to see around 30 different individuals walking out of the dungeon gate, one by one. They all seemed covered in dust and dirt, with no sign of blood or injury anywhere. Another success it seems, the vice leader at the side said. Ooh, can we go in now? You no longer have to worry about her either since I brought her a guard, Ning said. He turned towards White and said, your task is to look after my cousin when we go inside. As you say, Master, White said and turned around to Tae Hai to give her a warm smile. Kim Min Soo looked at White once more and contemplated whether it was a good idea to bring him along or not. However, he was already a man strong enough to be SSS ranked in terms of speed alone. If she were to deny such a person from entering, she could only imagine what would happen if he got angry. Fine, all four of us will go then, she said in the end. Leader, what about me? The vice leader asked. I'm afraid I can't afford to lose you in case something goes wrong inside. Just stay out here for now, she said. We should be out in a few hours. The vice leader didn't agree to that, but he couldn't disobey his own leader, so all he could do was nod and go to the side. All right, we can go in now. Cousin, do I have to really go in as well? Tae Hai asked. Ning turned to look at her. Don't you want to find a cure for grandmother? He asked. I do, she said, finding some resolve in her. Okay, I will go too. Great, Ning said and walked on ahead. He entered ahead of the others, and White followed behind him as well. Hai was right behind him, and Kim Min Soo entered after all of them had. Ning appeared in a desert-like environment at the bottom of some sort of canyon. The canyon cliffs were high and the pathway through them was narrow. Right, so what are we supposed to do exactly? He asked as he turned toward Kim. There are stone monsters as well as some desert beasts here, you will have to kill them. The stone monsters will drop ores when they disappear, and the beasts will drop mana stones. I will be taking all the loot, she said. Oh, and the cure? Ning asked. If we're lucky, there will be a tree at the end of the dungeon. So long as we beat the boss there, we should be able to get the fruit, she said. Sweet, let's go then, Ning said and started walking. Be careful. You need to be vigilant at all moments. You never know where the monsters will come fr. Before Kim Min Soo could finish her words, a humanoid stone monster appeared in front of Ning. It had been embedded in the wall itself, so it was impossible to notice it beforehand. However, now that it had split off from the wall, it was clearly visible, and as such, all Ning had to do was snap his fingers and the monster fell apart. Once the rock monster fell apart, it disappeared in wisps of smoke, leaving behind some metal ingots only. Kim Min Soo and Tae Hai's mouth was wide open when they saw that scene. Even White was surprised at how fast Ning had reacted. More than that, he hadn't sensed any chi coming from him when he had acted. Oh, it's been a while since I've seen Terra's ability, Safandra said from within Ning's clothes. I forgot you could do that now. You can do that now too, can't you? Ning asked. Well, yeah, Safandra said. He then turned to look at the White Devil Guild's leader. You should pick this up quickly. We need to move, he said. Kim Min Soo was truly awestruck, and that had been for two main reasons. First, she learned that Ning had gained the SSS rank in strength and speed. There was nothing about him having a very high amount of mana at all. Even if there was, she hadn't seen him use any magic as the magic circles never appeared on his hands. The second thing was that the monster he had just killed would have required the previous group about 3 minutes at least to properly defeat. That was if they performed the best. On average, one such fight required at least 5 minutes for the group. And yet, Ning had destroyed it so quickly. Can I do that? She thought. She didn't think it was possible even when she brought out her best fighters. Are you going to pick that up or not? Ning asked again, breaking her out of her thought. Ah, sorry, she said as she took the oars and placed them in the air where they disappeared. Interdimensional storage. Ning thought when he saw that. He wondered how she got that. Was that something her God gave her? I should learn about it later, he thought and continued forward. Terra's powers were fearsome. Since Ning was a rank 10 bondforger, his bond with the spirit Terra gave him fearsome control over everything that was stone and rock. Ning hadn't been able to use spiritual energy since he had left Nullworn, but now that he was on Earth where it permeated underneath all the mana, he could finally use it again. He walked forward unobstructed. Any stone monster that would come out of the wall would die in a snap of his figure as he had innate control over what the monsters were made of. When beasts appeared, he created rock spikes that killed them or crushed them in between two massive rocks. Ning was killing the monsters faster than Kim was picking up all the dropped loot from the ground. Not even 5 minutes after entering the dungeon, the group arrived at the boss of the dungeon that was actually neither rock nor flesh. Instead, it was a metal golem, formed from various ores that were available in this place. It was nearly 10 meters tall and was holding what looked like an axe. Terra's powers weren't as usable anymore as rocks wouldn't harm the boss as much. Kim quickly ran up to Ning. We have come to realize that its joints are its weak points. As long as you target them, you should be able to defeat it, she said. It's fine. I don't need to use weak points, Ning said as he slowly walked forward. The golem saw him coming and swung its axe. Ning smiled as he moved and caught the axe by the blade mere inches away from his face. Suddenly, the blade crumbled in his hands even when he hadn't used any force other than to catch it. To rust you go, he said. The metal axe rusted very quickly as Gray's powers were used to speed up the entropy of the materials that made up the monster. With enough time, the metal would either rust due to coming in contact with air, or simply grind away from repeated use. Gray's decaying powers only accelerated it by a lot. The rust flowed along the axe and went into the hands that were holding it. Before long, the metal boss was entirely rust, and then, it crumbled into nothing but flakes of rust. Ning looked behind the monster and sighed. Well, that's a shame. There is no tree here, he said as he turned to look at Kim Min-soo. Can we do this again? Ning went into the dungeon again and fought his way through it in record time. Since he knew what to expect this time around, there was nothing for him to do other than kill all those that came in front of him. Even the second time around, there weren't any plants at the end of the dungeon. Ning was starting to doubt he could ever even find any. However, the third time he entered, he did find the plant. He quickly defeated the metal boss and walked over to the end where the tree was located at. Hanging by one of the branches was a golden fruit that glittered so brightly that Ning suspected it was studded with diamonds. Tae Hai looked at the fruit from afar with wonder in her eyes. All this time, she was struggling to think of a way to reach that very fruit, but it seemed so far away. She had been planning to work herself to death if that was all she could do to possibly gain that fruit. In fact, she was very sure that she would die in one of the dungeons with how hurried she was. That was the main reason why she didn't want to join a guild at all. After all, only the government continued to pay people even past their death, while the guilds would be too greedy to do anything other than a single-time payment to her father who would desperately need funds. Her little brother was making some money, but it would take him way too long to make anything of value soon enough. While he and her father could possibly live off well, it wouldn't be as well as what she earned. Ning had no knowledge of her inner feelings, so he didn't think much when he arrived under the tree. He reached for it and without even putting in any effort, the fruit came off the branch. He looked at the circular fruit that was in the shape of orange but had the outer texture of an apple. So this is the fruit responsible for curing mana poisoning, huh? He thought. The fruit disappeared as he put it into his storage and walked back. What? Where did the fruit go? Tae Hai asked when she saw that it was gone. Seeing the fruit gone was akin to losing her own sense of self for her. Don't worry, I've kept it, Ning said as he pulled the fruit back out and put it back in again. You're an apostle? Kim Min-soo asked him with narrowed eyes. No, I'm not, Ning said. I doubt any of your gods would want me to represent them anyway. Ning started walking back the way he had come from as it was time to leave again. White followed leisurely, looking at the unique place he was in, taking in all the variety that would be hard to find in his own universe. Once they walked out, Ning turned towards the White Guild's leader. Do you think we should do it again? He asked. No, we're not doing it Aegean. Any more and the dungeon will disappear, she said. What do you mean? He asked curiously. Kim Min-soo couldn't help but be suspicious about his question. How do you not know about dungeons disappearing? She asked. I'm just ignorant, that's why, Ning said. Anyway, if we can't go into the dungeon again, then I will take my leave. If you want to contact me then, just contact her. I don't have a phone on me right now. Kim Min-soo quickly had someone record Tae Hya's phone number. Now, would you mind having someone take us back to the Department of Dungeon Defense? Our car is there, Ning said. Kim Min-soo's eyes looked at him weirdly as it turned towards White. Are you sure you need us to send you there? You seem to have a faster way, she said. Well, Ning said in an embarrassed manner. I suppose you're not wrong. See you later then. Ning snapped his finger, and the space twisted itself around him, White, and his cousin as they were all teleported directly into the Dodds parking lot. How did you? Tae Hya's eyes were wide with shock. There were too many things of shock that happened today, but this was probably the one that surprised her the most. Which hospital is grandmother in again? We should go there now. Tae Hya gave the name and assisted with the direction. With her aid, Ning backed the car out of the parking lot and left the Dodd to go heal her grandmother. Tae Hya was still in disbelief and simply couldn't wait for the moment her grandmother's eyes would open again. It had been so many years after all. Kim Min-soo stared at the empty space with a dumb look on her face. Her words had insinuated that White was fast enough to take them all away. However, she hadn't expected it to be Ning that took them away. Was that teleportation? She thought. She herself could teleport, but it was more of a swap, and it took a long time before she could do it again. Not only that, it was only her that could teleport using that method. Ning on the other hand had taken all three of them with him. How could he not be an apostle? She thought. Miss, should we proceed with forming a contract? One man asked from her side. She gave some deep thought before answering. No, not right now. We will have to find out more about him. She turned towards the vice leader and said, find everything you can on this person called Ning Ruigong. We need to make sure he's not a Chinese spy, or worse. What's worse than a Chinese spy? The vice leader asked. Someone not from this world, she said. She then turned to look at the man that had asked about the contract. Prepare an empty room for me. I'm going to need to have a talk with the god. Kim Min-soo arrived in a dark room with curtains and blinds all closed up to block all light. She could do what she was going to do in a light environment too, but darkness helped her concentrate far better. Once she arrived at the center of the room, she closed her eyes and slowly knelt on one leg as she bowed into nothingness. My liege, I require your assistance, she spoke out loud. She waited for a few seconds, but when she couldn't hear anything, she spoke again. My liege, I. You don't have to repeat yourself, little girl, an archaic voice said from in front of her. When she opened her eyes, a devil stood inches away from her. Kim Min-soo quickly backed away in surprise as dark powers gathered in her hands. The devil's eyes moved towards her hands and the powers dissipated into nothingness. What do you want? He asked. The devil was nothing but a giant spindly skeleton wearing a devil mask. However, when looked closely, one could realize that the devil mask was actually the skeleton's actual face. My liege, a certain human has awakened as a double SSS-ranked hunter, who is far stronger than me. He claims to not be an apostle of any gods, but I'm unsure what he is if not that, she said. A human with SSS rank? That's too soon, the devil said. There shouldn't be anyone that can reach that high without the assistance of a god. That is what I thought, she said. But I can't imagine why an apostle would try to hide their god's name when that is one of the main requirements of becoming an apostle. Tell me more about him, the devil asked. Kim Min-soo nodded and gave all the information she had gathered up to this point to the devil. He is also accompanied by a person, not from this side of the world, whose speed is so fast that I could barely keep up with my own eyes. That is truly interesting, the devil said. Now I'm curious if he is in fact someone who has one of those. One of what, my liege? She asked. The devil was amused by his own imagination. I wonder if he has a system. What's a system? Kim Min-soo asked curiously. It's a concentration of power, given to someone either by choice or without. We are too weak to make one, so it must have come from somewhere else, the devil said. What I gave you is but a mere attempt at copying what a system is capable of. Does he really have a system? She asked. The devil waited a bit to speak. Give me a few days. I will have to approach this carefully. Tae Hia asked many questions to Ning regarding how he was so strong, but she got no answers back at all. At least not the ones that explained stuff. So, when Ning asked a question of his own, she was very sure that she would not give him an answer of her own. However, with how much of a help he had been, she found it impossible to stay angry at him for long. A dungeon has enough mana to continue existing only a certain amount of iteration. The lower the dungeon level, the higher this amount is. Once you kill the monsters in a dungeon, the amount of mana in it is lowered. However, there is a continuous flow of mana to it that keeps it active. However, if you kill the dungeon too quickly, which means to clear it multiple times in a short period of time, then the total mana in the dungeon will be so low that the gate will be unstable and it will shut down, she explained. Oh, so that's why, he thought. Wait, so the S-ranked dungeon would have collapsed if I had cleared it a few more times? Most likely, she said. While its overall mana would be very high since it has to create A-ranked and S-ranked monsters inside, it wouldn't take many close clears to destroy it. I see, Ning said. But isn't that a good thing? Clear the dungeons so you no longer have any chance of dungeon break? It is, and many countries did do that during the starting phase when apostles and hunters started to take prominence, Tae Hia said. The apostles outright refused, and while the hunters did do what their government told them to, it didn't take long for the government to realize their mistake. Which is? Ning asked. Clearing dungeon meant that you were suddenly out of resources and mana stones to improve your own hunters. Korea was about to do that too, but the majority of the dungeons were owned by guilds, and they refused to clear it, which is why it is so powerful today, she said. I see, Ning said. Any other reasons other than wanting to keep your country strong? I don't know, Tae Hia said. I suppose it's just the human mindset to keep wanting to become stronger. Even when you have the chance to fully remove all threats from your country, if it keeps giving you resources and energy sources, the government also decides to not do so at the risk of so many people dying. I suppose that's true, Ning said. They arrived at the hospital, and the group quickly took the elevator up through the hospital. White looked around in awe at what men could do were they not to have any powers to fall upon. Ning walked out of the elevator, and Tae Hia quickly showed them where their grandmother was. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably the closer they got to the room. Ning grabbed her hands to calm her. It's all going to be fine, he said. Hia calmed down a little, but she was still quite nervous at what was going to happen. Ning arrived at the door to the room and found out that he was quite nervous himself. However, with a single breath, he removed any nervousness from himself and walked in. Ning walked into the room and was surprised to see that it was actually a massive hall, filled with various different people. Most of them were staying in the beds, but due to there being too many people who were there, some were down on the floor as well. Are they all mana poisoned? Yes, Tae Hia said. There are too many of them, so some of them have to be kept on the floor. Ning heard some grunting noises from the sides, where people were in pain. They're not in a coma? He asked. Not yet, she said. But this pain and the inability to focus on anything but the pain is just a precursor to going into a coma. And the antidote is so hard to get, Ning thought. He couldn't even rush the dungeons to find it as the dungeons would disappear after a few too many runs. Can I really not do anything? He thought. He had asked the system if he could heal people before, but the system's answer had been simple. He had the ability to rid someone's current symptoms and get them out of the coma, but he was incapable of actually curing the mana poisoning. That can't be true, right? Is there absolutely no way? He asked the system again. There is a way, but it is not available to you now. Tell me what is it, so I can hopefully work toward it, he said. There is an 8th tier spell called Holy Guardian's Cleansing that can cure and rid a person of all ailments or injuries. 8th tier. What does that mean? Ning asked. Tier is how a mage's level is seen. Is it? Oh wait, I bought information about them, didn't I? Gosh, it's been so many 100,000 years that I nearly forgot, Ning said as he quickly checked. A normal mage could go from tier 1 to tier 10 by gathering mana in themselves. A spell was similar as well, and only people who had reached a certain tier could use the magic of that tier. What is tier 8 when compared to this E to SSS rankings? Ning asked. 1 rank higher than SSS. Wow, that will take me quite a few days to achieve. I will probably have left here by then, Ning said. Then I suppose I must heal them after I come back. There she is. Tae Hai pointed towards the end of the hall. Ning turned around to see an old woman with a thin body wearing a blue hospital gown, laying on the bed. Her eyes were shut, and her breathing was slow. Her face, he could see parts of his mother's face in the old woman's features. How is she? Hai-ah asked a nearby nurse. Her conditions are stable, and her body isn't rejecting the nutrients we are giving her. She shouldn't be in any condition to take any significant damage to her body now, the nurse said. Thank you, Hai-ah said. Are you guys visiting? I'm afraid you guys will have to come in one at a time so you don't crowd up this place, the nurse said. Sorry, it will just take a few minutes, Ning said and quickly walked up to his grandmother. Then, he pulled out the golden fruit. The nurse's eyes went wide when she saw it. You found a cure? She asked. Yes, Hai-ah said. Ning took the fruit up to her grandmother and paused. How do I use it again? He asked. Put the fruit near her center of mass. It will do its job on its own, Hai-ah explained. Center of mass, the navel area? So I should just put it above the sea of mana, huh? He thought. He placed the fruit above the navel area of his grandmother and suddenly, the fruit shined with bright light, sensing trapped mana that could not circulate in a body that wasn't used to having mana. Ning expected the fruit to absorb the mana that was inside a person, but instead what happened was that the fruit dissolved into a golden pool of energy, flowing down into his grandmother. He sent in his senses and saw that the fruit was dissolving into the body to fix the broken channels in the body that were causing the mana to pool and not flow properly. As soon as the channels were forged and the mana could circulate again, he instantly sensed his grandmother awaken as a mage. Her slow breathing got a little faster, and her heartbeat quickened. Her pale-colored face showed some more color and overall she looked better. Tae Hai-ah closed her mouth to not let out any sounds as emotions overwhelmed her. It had been so long since the mana of this world had poisoned her grandmother. Finally, she was healed. She couldn't help but cry and even Ning felt a bit emotional. Still, he couldn't get too emotional as there were more things to do. He grabbed his grandmother's hands from the side and checked the heartbeat. Along with that, he sensed if she had any problems. He couldn't find any immediately visible problems, but still, it wouldn't be a bad idea to heal her, so he used his healing skill to remove any other problems she might have had in the body. Still, his grandmother did not open her eyes. What's going on? Ning asked. It's normal, the nurse said. They take a few hours to wake up. As their body has just been healed, it will take them more than a few minutes to relocate the nutrients that were taken away to use elsewhere. Once the body realizes there's no more need, she will wake up. Also, because she is on the older side of patients we have, please don't be surprised if she even takes a whole day to wake up. Ning nodded. We should prepare to take her home still. She should wake up back in the house, he said. Tae Hai-ah agreed. A doctor came to sign off the discharge papers so that Ning and Hai-ah could take their grandmother back home. After learning what she did, and checking the old woman's vitals, the doctor was certain that she had recovered and would be fine to take home. Staff came and put their grandmother into a stroller before dragging her out of the room. We should go, Tae Hai-ah said. Ning paused for a moment as he looked at the remaining people in the room. He then turned toward the nurse and asked, Do you have information on everyone in this room at the moment? Sorry. The nurse looked confused and worried. We can't give out patient information. You won't have to, Ning said. I only need to know that if they were ever to leave this hospital, could you call them back? I suppose, yes, the nurse said. The nurse looked towards the doctor to help her. Is everything all right? The doctor asked. Everyone here suffering from mana poisoning, right? He asked. Yes, this is the ward where we keep people that have mana poisoning, the doctor said. Good, Ning said. Hai-ah, White, get everyone that is not a patient out of here right now. What are you doing? Hai-ah asked. Yes, master. White was ready to follow his command at a moment's notice. White gently gestured for the nurses, staff, and even the doctor to leave. Hai-ah didn't understand what was happening. The doctor was practically appalled at the situation. I will call security. You can't. Ning pulled out something he had received from the DOD after passing their test. A hunter ID. He showed the ID to the nurse, who had her words stuck in her mouth after reading the words on the card. SSS rank? She looked at the card and back at Ning. I'm going to get rid of the mana that's torturing their body. Please get anyone that isn't tortured by it out of here, he said. Tae Hai-ah had seen too much today to question his words again. Come on, sister. We should get out of here for now, she said. The doctor wanted to stay behind, but she found it hard to disagree with an SSS-ranked hunter's command. "Fine. Everyone, out," she shouted. The nurses and staff moved out one after another. Ning waited for everyone to go out and for the door to be shut. Once shut, he looked around at the people there. "All right. Let's start. System, is there a way to do it all at once?" Ning asked. "Some sort of skill to steal away mana from others maybe." "Less than there is a tier 5 spell you can use. A spell called Mana Siphon where you can steal away someone else's mana. Greater than. Can I target multiple people with it?" he asked. "Less than no, but you can use multiples of it at the same time. Greater than." "Oh, okay, that works. Teach me," Ning said. The system gave him the relevant information, and Ning quickly learned it. With his talent, he hardly ever needed any time to learn since he had talent that was simply uncontested. "All right, let's begin." He took a deep breath and suddenly a magic circle appeared in his hands from which came a long, illusory blue stream of light that landed on a random person in his sight. Then, the mana inside their body was slowly sucked out of them. At the same time, Ning cast the spell again, this time the illusory blue light latching onto someone else and pulling out the mana from them. The mana that was siphoned out went into Ning, increasing his own mana and even improving his tier. He used the spell again, siphoning more mana from another person. Ning felt a slight strain on his body, particularly his mana channels which had to accept such a vast amount of mana. However, because of how strong his body was, he didn't have to worry about it in the least. More and more mana circles formed in front of him as he sucked in more and more mana from everyone around him. At some point, he had even reached S rank in mana alone. Still, there were a lot more people around him who needed him to take away all the mana. The latch on the first person vanished as he finished taking away all their mana. While they weren't healed, the stagnant mana was gone, for now, making them feel a lot better. The few people that had still not fallen into a coma stopped grunting as the pain and nausea slowly lifted from them. Once it went away, the people started falling asleep as a result of the fatigue they had been under. Time passed slowly, while White, Hi-Ah, and the other staff members stood outside, worried. They had been outside for nearly half an hour but they couldn't hear anything other than the people that had stopped moaning in pain. The doctor and nurse wanted to go in, but White stopped them. By now, the rest of the hospital's management had arrived as well, but they couldn't go in once they heard that an SSS-ranked hunter was inside. They stopped as well. They went and checked the cameras, but they saw nothing openly nefarious happening, so they all went back outside the room and waited. Another 10 minutes went by and finally the door opened as Ning walked out with a relatively tired look on his face. He saw the many people that were standing outside and gave a foolish smile. "My apologies. It took a bit longer than I imagined. You guys can go in now," he said. The doctors and nurses quickly went in, while the hospital security kept Ning where he was just to ensure he hadn't done anything. "It's a miracle," the doctor shouted. "They're all healed." The nurses started gossiping as well. "No," Ning said. "They aren't healed. What I've done is not different from relieving the pressure from a swollen area. I haven't healed the injury itself." Then, the doctor looked at him. "They should be able to get up and go about their daily life, but they will once more fall ill in the future. Hopefully, by that time there will be a cure for their illness." Baek Young-hwa slowly opened her eyes, confused for a moment as to where she was. She felt well rested and had no sense of discomfort, which felt weird for some reason. It was as if she woke up expecting some sort of problem with her own body. She thought when she felt a weight around her leg when she tried to lift it. When she looked at what it was, she saw a head full of red hair, sleeping by the side of her bed. The old woman was confused and slowly nudged the head. Tae Hi-Ah woke up from her own sleep. She had been looking after her grandmother ever since they brought her home. She knew it would take some time, even a day for her grandmother to wake up, so he had fallen asleep by her without hesitation. Now that she was awake, she looked at the old woman with her confused face. "Grandma," she shouted and immediately rushed to hug her. "Grandma, you woke up." "Hi-Ah, is that you?" the old woman asked. "Yes, Grandma, it's me," she said. "How, you?" The old woman found it hard to speak about what was so confusing. Tae Hi-Ah quickly left her grandma and rushed to the door. "Grandma is awake," she shouted into the house. 2 pairs of footsteps could be heard as they rushed up the room. The old woman expected to see 2 familiar faces. The first one to enter was her son, Tae Min-ki, who seemed to have somehow grown older since the last time she saw him. The second one to enter was her grandson, Tae Hung Ji, who. The old woman paused. Was that Tae Hung Ji? He looked nothing like the young man she remembered. She kept staring for a while when she noticed something. Those eyes, are you? Mother, look who came to visit us. Tae Min Ki walked up to her and grabbed her hand. You can recognize him, right? Is that really my grandson? She asked. Grandmother, I'm happy to finally meet you, Ning said as he walked up to the old woman. He sat by her side as he introduced herself. I'm Ning Ruigong. You really are her son? She asked with tears. Where is that stupid girl? She never once even reached out to tell her how she was. Ning's face darkened. My mother and father both passed away already in a car accident, he said. The tears that were teetering on the edge of her eyelids fell as the old woman heard the news. My child, I told her not to go with him. I told her he wasn't good for her. And now he killed her, the old woman said. Mother, please don't curse the dead. My brother-in-law wasn't the one at fault here. Accidents happen, it's not like he did it on his own, Tae Min Ki said. Besides, if not for him and your sister, you wouldn't have a grandson like this who were far and beyond to get you out of your coma. The old woman turned to look at her. Coma? She asked with a confused look. The three of them had to spend some time explaining to the old woman that it had been a few years since she had gotten ill with mana poisoning and had fallen into a coma. The woman finally understood why everything looked so weird around her. I was in a coma, huh? And my eldest grandson healed me? She asked. Yes, Grandma. Cousin did something that could only be considered a miracle today to heal you, Hya said. Forget miracle, it's the hottest news out there right now. You open any outlet and they talk about either him getting the SSS rank, or him healing the entire hospital room, Min Ki said. The old woman couldn't understand most of the things her son was talking about, but she could see that it was definitely something incredible. At least that stupid girl did something good in her life. If only she hadn't died too, the old woman said softly. Her tears started flowing once again and the rest of the people in the room started tearing up as well. Ning stayed quiet for a while, letting the others cry, while his eyes got a little moist as well. After a while, Tae Hya left the room to go prepare dinner. Normally, they would have ordered food, but since their grandmother was home, she decided to give her so home-cooked meal. Besides, the doctor had given strict directives to not give anything solid as the old woman's body had severe muscular degeneration due to not having to use any of it for a long time. It got dark outside not long after and the door to the front of the house opened up. Gosh, it is so late today. A young man walked in with a small box in his hands. He had black hair and fair skin and was tall and lean. He wore a green coat, a uniform from his guild, and hung it by the side of the room. Sis, I got you some cake as. He stopped when he saw a man with golden hair intently watching TV in their living room. A guest? He thought. White turned around and looked at the young man. With a single look, he understood who it was. Your family is upstairs, he said as he went back to watching TV again. Okay. He slowly walked away from the weird encounter and walked upstairs. He quickly found his sister in the hallway. Sis, who's the guy downstairs? He asked. A guest, she said. Come with me. He followed her without asking any questions. Oh right, did you hear about what happened at the hunter testing place today? You must have been there, right? I was, she said. So, is it true? Was there really a man with not one SSS rank stat, but two? He asked. Tae Hya smiled. Let me introduce someone to you. Gary stood in front of the weirdest portal he had ever seen in his life. Normally, a portal would be completely covered in swirling energy with hazy light coming off of it, and would not allow one to look into what was inside of it. However, this new dungeon that had formed out of nowhere had a portal that clearly showed what was inside. He looked at the reading on his device and was confused by the findings as well. Why is there absolutely no mana in there at all? He wondered. His head ached from the lack of sleep as he was forced to look after the dungeon. He wanted to sleep already, but he would have to wait a while since he was going to send some people in to check the inside. The group of hunters, the one at the head of them all being an A-ranked one, walked inside immediately. Gary had to wait around 3 or so hours before they completely cleared the dungeon and we found nothing, the leader said from in front of him. Gary looked confused. Why are you guys still out here? You should go in, he said. The hunter looked confused as well. We did go in, he said. We spent 5 hours in there searching for any sort of life, but aside from normal bugs and birds and maybe a few animals, we found nothing. Gary was confused when he heard that. How did you spend 5 hours in there when it hasn't even been a single second since you entered? He asked. Are you okay? The hunter asked. We spent 5 hours in there. No, you didn't, Gary said. Look, it's still 12:35. What? That can't be, we really did spend 5 hours inside, the hunter said. Gary looked around at the rest of the hunters who said the same thing. Can you go in for a few minutes and come back out again? He asked. Stay in there as long as you can. Oh, right. Take this tablet with you too. The hunters looked around for a bit and said, sure. Gary watched them go in this time around. When they did go in, they immediately walked back out. How long was it now? We stayed there for about 15 minutes, the hunter said as he handed back the table. Gary looked at the tablet and was surprised. The time was now 12:48. They truly had spent some 15 minutes inside the dungeon. Then how had time not passed at all? I see, you may give your report now, he said. Well, nothing much to report, I guess. There is absolutely nothing but flat grounds and trees around. No beast, no boss. There's not even mana if I'm not wrong, but that's just a feeling, the man said. I see. Thank you for your service, Gary said, sure. The hunters walked away. As it still ached, Gary massaged his head a little and looked at the data. Is time moving differently? He wondered. He had to check. Gary thought for a moment and left his tablet behind before walking in through the dungeon gate. He arrived on the inside and smelled the cool and fresh air, unlike the hot air from the desert heat of Utah. Despite his headache, he moved around and looked at the landscape. Truly, there was nothing in here that was worth reporting at all. It was just a simple piece of land. Which was probably why it was worth reporting in the first place. There had yet to be a simple piece of land with no monsters in any dungeon. I should return, he thought. But he had to wait a while. He looked around, just to make sure there really was no danger. Once he made sure there was none, he laid down and waited for a while. As he did, his lack of sleep slowly took over him. Within minutes, he fell asleep in the soft grass beneath him in the caress of the cool breeze that went on around him. The deep, howling winds in the distance only made his sleep more peaceful. Gary woke up in a daze many hours later and slowly got up. He looked towards the sky and saw nothing but a pale silver moon hanging in the sky. He was confused. He looked around, wondering what he was doing in this place. As his mental capabilities returned to him after a long sleep, his heart hastened as panic filled him with dread. Oh no, I fell asleep, he thought. He was refreshed, but that didn't stop him from worrying. He quickly walked back through the gate and immediately blocked his eyes at the midday sun. What? Why's the sun out? He thought. He looked at the tablet that was on the table and remembered what he had expected before going into the dungeon. He slowly took the tablet and proceeded to turn it on, but before he even did so, he realized it was already turned on. Rather, he realized that it hadn't turned off at all. His eyes moved to look at the time and he noticed the number change from 12:48 to 12:49. 12:48 wasn't at the time those hunters came out, he thought. He checked the log and it was indeed the case. Then wait, did I spend less than a single minute for all that time inside? He thought. He had to report it to his superiors. He quickly got on the phone and explained everything. If that is the case, then stay there. We will arrive in a day or two, and then we will decide what to do, the superiors said. Gary nodded and looked back at the dungeon gate. A single minute out here meant hours in there. What could he do if he had so much time on his hands? He quickly opened his personal smartphone and started downloading books, movies, TV series and everything else he had wanted to go through for a long time but hadn't had the time to. Gary Benton enjoyed the time of his life as he spent multiple years inside the dungeon while only ever coming out to charge his smartphone. Sometime later, he even took a charger with him inside the dungeon so he didn't have to come out to waste time. While he spent his time enjoying his life, he slowly got acclimated to the environment that was this world as a single day passed outside. While there was no chi inside, his body still slowly changed, becoming one where it could accept chi if ever given to him. Now, when he went back outside, he could even cultivate if he knew how to. With how strong chi could make someone, he would have a definite advantage over the hunters of the earth as well. Unfortunately for Gary, he would never have the chance at all. This is useless. A figure spoke to himself from a place that couldn't be easily reached. I thought it was interesting that there was another universe out there, but I can see no humans anywhere. Without humans, I have no need for something, the being thought to himself. Then, the portal to the other universe started closing. However, a disaster struck just then, and in that disaster, the figure found a chance. A chance to rise above everyone else. Brother, tell me how you did it. Please, I want to become as strong as you, Tae Young-hee said in an overly enthusiastic tone. Ning had woken up not long ago and had come down for breakfast, and yet he was already being hounded over by his little cousin over how he could get stronger. In fact, this wasn't the only time. Even last night when Young-hee had only just returned home and had learned about his grandmother being out of the coma, and Ning being the SSS-ranked hunter that healed her, he had started asking Ning about the secrets that led him to become this strong. His uncle and cousin had helped reel in this young cousin of his last night, but he had once again started asking Ning. As a C-ranked hunter, he truly wished to learn the secrets that could help him reach the same heights as Ning. You aren't an apostle, right? He asked. No, I'm not an apostle, Ning said. Then please tell me, big bro. I will do anything that's necessary, he said. Ning sighed for a moment and decided to give him something. Fine, I will tell you how you can become stronger, he said. Young-hee excitedly looked at Ning while waiting for him to speak. First thing is, you will have to give up on your soul. You will have to sell your soul in exchange for something else that will help you grow stronger, Ning said. Young-hee's smile slowly disappeared as a frown appeared on his face. You're messing with me. Just say, no, if you don't want to answer, he said. Ning couldn't help but chuckle. There's nothing I can do that will make you become stronger in a concise amount of time, he said. If you want to get stronger, you must persevere and go along with the flow of time. Young-hee's eyes narrowed. How long did it take you to become this strong? He asked. Very long, Ning said. Much longer than you can imagine. 6 years? Young-hee asked. That was the furthest back he could think of when the dungeons were just starting to appear. What are you guys talking about? Hi-ah asked. Is he bothering you? What do you mean, bothering? I'm just asking big bro some questions, Young-hee said. No, he's not bothering me. He just wants to know how to become strong like me, Ning said. Can he become strong like you? Hi-ah gave a confused look. From what I gathered, you didn't get strong normally, but rather just awakened this strong. I don't think we can ever reach your level. That might not necessarily be true, Ning said. Ning pulled out a set of rings, 3 in total that he had prepared before going to sleep last night. What's that? Young-hee asked. Wear this, he said as he gave on to his little cousin. You too. He handed the other one to his other cousin. Hi-ah curiously looked at the ring. Aside from being of very high-tier craftsmanship and having a nice-looking red jewel on it, she couldn't see what was so good about the ring. It wasn't even gold or silver from what she could see. Just promise me you'll wear it. It's a type of item for defense, he said. I've already given grandmother something similar, and this is for you too. I will give uncle one when he wakes up. It's a defensive item. What does that mean? Young-hee asked. It will be easier to show, Ning said and took a plate from the table before throwing it in his direction. Young-hee instinctively put up his hands to block the plate, and he heard it shatter, but he did not feel it. He slowly opened his eyes to see a soft yellow-colored barrier around him that was protecting him. What? How is this possible? He asked. He had seen some magical items that could do various things, but they all needed the wearer to inject mana. However, he was doing no such thing himself. That's not the only thing possible, Ning said. Say, status. Status. Whoa. Young-hee moved backward when the transparent blue screen appeared in front of him. What is this? It's a little copy of what the apostles see. It's just there for you to keep track of your own stats without having to use one of those machines. I have also put in a technique in there that if you can learn and use properly, you can acquire 100% of the mana you take from every mana stone you use. Depending on the grade of mana stone you can acquire, you will be able to improve your mana by a lot, he said. But you have to remember that this is just your mana. Your physical capabilities will still have to rely on your daily exercises and various other physical activities you will do. Will this really help though? Hi-ah asked. You will be able to tell after you try it out, Ning said. Here, give this to your father too. Okay. Hi-ah said and took the third ring. His cousin no longer bothered him and only stared at the status window, seeing his ranks in the same way it would be shown in the Department of Dungeon Defense. His strength, speed, and mana were all C ranks, and he was just a single rank increase away from entering the B rank. Ning finally got to eat his breakfast in peace. Just then, the doorbell rang from outside, and Hai-Ah lost her focus on her ring. She turned to look towards the outside with a confused look on her face. Who could it be at this time? She thought. Ning spread his divine sense and saw who it was outside. It's a Chinese man, he said. Do you know anyone Chinese? No. You are the only Chinese person I've talked to in ages, she said. I'll go see who it is. Hai-Ah went to the gate and opened it. When she saw who was on the other side, she couldn't help but be shocked at the person that stood outside. The man said something in the Chinese language. She had no way of understanding Chinese, but for some reason, she did understand exactly what he meant. And even more surprisingly, she knew what to reply. Is Ning Ruigong here? The man asked. The man, who seemed to be in his early 30s, had long flowing hair and pitch black eyes, and was wearing what she could only assume was a modern take on some traditional Chinese robes. Hai-Ah looked at the man, and without even having to second-guess her thoughts, she knew who the man was. Zhu Zenshin, the apostle of the Shadow's Edge Guild from China. She had only ever seen him on TV, so seeing him in person made her feel quite surprised. Is the hunter named Ning Ruigong here? A man by her side translated the words to Korean, assuming she did not understand him. Hai-Ah was way too caught up in her own shock, so before she could even respond, Ning appeared behind her. I am Ning Ruigong, the one you seem to be looking for, Ning said as he stepped in front of his cousin. How may I help you? So, you are the new SSS-ranked hunter, huh? The man said. You're Chinese, right? Yes, I am, Ning said. Who might you be? The man's face scrunched up a bit at the question before bursting into a small fit of laughter. Come on, stop joking. You know who I am, he said. Oh, you must be someone important then, Ning said and turned toward his cousin. Who's he? He's Zhu Zenshin, an apostle from a guild called Shadow's Edge. They're one of China's strongest guilds along with Blind Fury and Stull's children, she quickly said. I see, he said and turned to look at the man. So, how may I help you? Did you really register as a hunter in Korea? The man asked. Yes, I did, Ning said. Why? The man asked. What do you mean why? Ning asked. Why would you go to another country to register? Why not register in China? The man asked. No reason. I just saw an opportunity and took it, Ning said. You're still not saying what you're here for. Should I assume you have nothing else to say and go back inside? The man frowned. The government sent me to bring you back so you can become a hunter in China. Dress up as soon as you can. You have a plane waiting for you at the airport, he said. I see, Ning said. So, you're here to take me back? Feels weird that they would send someone strong like you as a messenger. I'm here to help you get away in case the Korean government is keeping you here through some nefarious methods, the man said. Are you being kept against your will? Oh no, I'm not. Thank you for asking though, Ning said. All right, then let's leave quickly. I have my guild to look after, the man said. Huh? Oh, I'm not leaving, Ning said. I'm going to continue to stay in Korea. What? Why would you want to stay in this country and not return to your own? The man asked. My own? Oh, haha. You seem to not have all the information, Ning said as he brought out his national ID for South Korea. See this? I'm someone from South Korea now. The man stared at it with a dumb look on his face as he couldn't read Korean on it, so the man beside him had to explain what it was quickly. You became a citizen of Korea? The apostle asked. Yes, that's what it says. Sorry, I forgot you couldn't read Korean, Ning said. Why would you? The man asked. He simply couldn't comprehend what Ning had done. Because I'm half Korean, and I have family here, Ning said. But your name is Chinese, the man said. I was Chinese, but then I changed to Korean, Ning said. The man looked at him with eyes that could not believe what he was saying. You traitor. You betrayed your own country and joined these damn Koreans, he said with a visible rage on his face. Hai-Ah's face turned sour when she heard it. She could understand what the man was saying, so hearing her nation being treated as a worse one didn't feel good. Ning only smiled at the man. So in this situation where the world could be overrun by monsters any day and you could lose everyone in a matter of hours, you still care about countries and nationalities? He asked. Who said the world can be destroyed that easily? The man asked. As long as I and the other apostles are here, we will never lose to any damn monsters. I can promise that on my God, Restel's name. Well, good for you then. Since it seems like you have nothing else to do, goodbye, Ning said and turned around. He beckoned his cousin to go in, so she started walking in. Ning also went behind her, but before he could do so, Zhu Zenshin's hand landed on his shoulders. I came here to take you back. I will do so whether you want to or not. Let's go, he said. Suddenly, the shadow underneath Ning and him expanded until they touched each other. At the same time, the shadow became a portal through which both he and Ning started falling through. Cousin! Hai-Ah shouted the moment she saw what was happening after turning around, but by that time, both Ning and the man were gone through the shadow. The two of them immediately reappeared outside of the shadow in the opposite direction, feet first. Zhu Zenshin was used to this technique, so he quickly flipped and landed on his feet. Let me take you to, cousin, are you okay? Hai-Ah quickly came up to Ning but stopped when she saw his smile. Ning turned around to look at the man's shocked face. What happened? Why are we not in China? He asked. They were back where they had just left. If you want to go back to China, then go, but don't expect me to come along with you, Ning said as he walked close to him. Zhu Zenshin couldn't help but feel a little scared when he realized that Ning might have done something to him to make it so that his skill didn't work. What did you do? He asked. Ning placed a hand on the man's shoulder. I won't be as lenient the next time you try to pull something like this. Leave. Suddenly, the space twisted around the man as he was teleported away. Ning sent him back to the place they had just come from. The other man who was standing there quickly bowed and ran away in his car. Let's go back inside, Ning said. Hai-Ah was surprised, but that didn't feel unusual anymore. They went back inside the house, and just as they returned to the kitchen, Young-hee came up to his sister. Sister, look at this. He quickly showed the lock screen of his sister's phone. There was a notification on it that had surprised him a little bit too much. You've got a message from the White Devil Guild. The White Devil Guild requests that you meet them today by 11 a.m. Can you do it? Hai-Ah asked Ning. What's the time now? 9, Ning asked. Yeah, a little past 9, she said. Okay then, I can do it, Ning said. Brother, should I leave my job? Can you get me into the White Devil Guild? Young-hee asked. No, Ning said. I'm not helping you anymore. You will grow reliant too much. You'll have to do it all on your own. Work hard like everyone else. Come on, just a little help, Young-hee said. Nope, no help, Ning said. He turned towards Hai-Ah. You should go back to work too. Does the government assign you some task or do you just sign up for it? They set up a schedule at the end of each day, she said. You didn't miss out on anything yesterday, right? He asked. No, I had taken a day off knowing that I would have to rank up. I will start today again, she said. Good, he said. Also buy some vehicle. Since grandma is all right now, you don't have to worry about money anymore. Ah, you're right, Young-hee said. Sis, can we buy that bike I've been telling you about? It's awesome, and I think it's going to go on sale very soon. If we're getting anything, we're getting a car first. If we buy a bike and you take it, that's the same as being without any vehicle again. If you want a bike, reach rank B and gather some money. You will buy a bike in almost no time, Hai-Ah said. Ah, the young man got sad. Well, aside from a vehicle, you should look into moving houses as well. Unless you have an emotional attachment to this house, Ning said. I would like to keep this house. He and I grew up in this house, and it's been in our family for generations, so it feels wrong to just leave it, she said. Okay. Then you should just get a place closer to the city, Ning said. That way you don't have to commute such a long distance every day. Later, Hai-Ah said. With grandma healed, I will have more than just that to think about. Alright, I'll leave you up to it then, Ning said. Where's White? You mean that blonde dude? I think he's still watching TV, Young-hee said. TV? Ning sent his divine senses to the TV room and saw White watching the TV intently. He was watching some documentary on tigers from what Ning could see. Do you plan on leaving today or not? Will you watch TV all day? Ning asked. Oh, no master. I will leave. I want to go out and check the rest of the world, he said. What about you? Ning asked Safandra, who had been watching the TV as well. You won't take us to other places to see, right? Then I will go with him too, she said. Good, go and do what you want. Just don't get into trouble like yesterday, Ning said. I will be leaving soon too. After a while, Ning changed his clothes and went over to the building for the White Devil Guild. He walked in and asked to meet their guild leader. The vice leader was already in the lobby, so he quickly came up to Ning and brought him to Kim Min-soo. The girl was waiting for him in her office at the top of the building once more. "You're finally here," she said the moment she saw him walk in. "Yes, I hear you called me. You must have decided on my contract details then," he said. "Not yet, there are still a few things I'm confused about that I wanted to clear up with you before our team forms any sort of contract," she said. "I hope you can answer some of our questions." Sure, go ahead," Ning said. "First thing, your name is Chinese, but you are a Korean hunter?" she asked. "That's how it came to be. I'm half Korean by the way, in case you didn't know," he said. "Even then, you were a Chinese citizen before this, right? We have a record that says that you only recently become a Korean citizen," she said. "You looked me up, huh?" "Yes, you're right, I only recently became a Korean citizen," Ning said. "You aren't going to ask why I became a traitor or something, right?" Zhu Zenshin asked the same thing just a few hours ago. Kim Min-soo's eyes narrowed. "Zhu Zenshin? He came to meet you?" she asked with a concerned look. "Yeah, but he's back now. I hope you won't be as patriotic as him. You'll find that I simply do not care about the country I'm from," he said. The girl kept a serious face. "I'll keep that in mind," she said. She didn't ask the question about why he left China for Korea and instead moved on to another question. "Are you from Chengdu?" she asked. You're quite fast, how did you find out?" he asked. "So it's true," the girl said with a bit of shock. "That is true," Ning said. "I am from Chengdu, but you must tell me how you found out." "Image recognition software," she said. "We had the Korean government look you up." Ning's eyes narrowed as a small smile appeared on his face. "The Korean government has access to China's database?" he asked. The girl said nothing. "Anyway, we learned about you from there. I hope you aren't angry about us doing a background check on you," she said. No, it's all right. It's not like you can do anything just because you have knowledge of my past," Ning said. "So, now that you looked at my past, is there anything that you want an answer for?" "Yes," the girl said. "Our information might be incorrect." "No, it is incorrect. I was hoping to learn why there is wrong information in the database about you." "Which information might that be?" Ning asked. The girl frowned. She could tell that Ning was being purposefully oblivious to her question. Still, she decided to humor him and asked the question that had been bothering her ever since she read him information this morning. "Why does the government think you died in a zoo accident?" she asked. Ning's smile broadened. "I died, of course. That's why the government has that information." "I can't believe you would ask such a simple question," he said. The girl was ticked off slightly by Ning's words. "Why did you fake your death?" she asked, as she believed that to be the truth in this instance. "I did not fake my death. I did die," Ning said. "But an all-powerful being wanted me alive, so I was reincarnated. And now I'm here." Kim Min-soo couldn't figure out which feelings to feel. On one hand, she felt that Ning was making fun of her by obviously lying, but on the other hand, the document stated his death as well as the fact that there was video proof from the zoo. She could only believe one thing to be true in that instance then. Her voice got a little softer as she asked, "Did you come back to life because of your system?" Ning was the one surprised at this point. He hadn't expected the question to come out of this girl's mouth. "How do you know about my system?" he asked. The girl's eyes went wide. So you do have it," she said. "Tisk. You weren't even sure. And here I assumed your god must have told you," Ning said. He was a little annoyed that she had taken away the confirmation so easily, but the fact that she knew about the system alone told him that he hadn't really lost anything there. Even without confirmation, she and her god would have considered the option at least, and they would be very certain, as anyone gaining so many powers without a system would be near impossible, especially in a world that knew nothing about mana or chi or spiritual energy. "May I ask what this system allows you to do?" the girl asked. "No," Ning said. "Do you have anything else to ask, or can I leave?" "What? No, I don't have any more questions, but you can't leave," Kim Min-soo said. "The director of Dungeon Defense wants to meet you, and he apparently has some work for us." "The director? All right," Ning said. "Let's go then," the girl said. "Can you teleport us to Seoul?" Ning was about to say yes, but instead, he shook his head. "I've never been to Seoul, and I can't go to a place I don't know about," he said. He wanted to make it seem like his teleportation powers had limitations, which there were if he was using the space manipulation property of his tamed spirit, Void. His intention was to make it seem like his system wasn't as good, and as such Kim Min-soo's god wouldn't realize that he was dealing with the energy system. No, no problem. I've already prepared our travel means, she said. Ning nodded and walked out. He walked over to the elevator and pressed the button to open the door. What are you doing? She asked. Calling the elevator. What are you doing? He asked when he saw her by the stairs. You are going to take the stairs? Yes, she said. We're going to the roof. The roof? Ning arrived at the room and heard the loud noise of spinning motors. He looked at the helicopter that was kept on the helipad and was surprised. Wow, imagine having a helicopter in your own building. You guys are really rich, Ning said as he walked towards the thing. What? Kim Min-soo shouted through the ferocious wind that made it impossible to hear anything that was being spoken. Ning laughed slightly and shook his head before getting onto the helicopter. He put on the belts and headphones as they took off and flew toward Seoul. We will reach Seoul in an hour, the girl said through the mic. Ning only nodded toward her in understanding. Ning looked down at the land far below him and chuckled a little as he wondered how happy Safandra would be if she could have seen this. The ride was smooth, and as Min-soo had said, it only took an hour for them to reach. They landed on an empty area and they disembarked. Ning looked at the place where they had come and saw other helicopters close by. You said the others are called too? He asked. All the SSS-ranked people are called, she said. Ning nodded and walked up to the building that looked more like a gymnasium than anything. They both entered the building and heard shouts from inside as they saw two people fighting. A man stayed inside a barrier and shot out magic attacks left and right, trying to hit another man, but he was too fast to be hit. The magic caster was a middle-aged man with long black hair that was tied in a bun and thick facial hair. He wore a purple suit and pants and looked quite professional. On the other hand, the man that was zipping around was a younger man, maybe in his mid-20s, who wore a tracksuit and had buzz-cut hair. They're already here, Kim Min-soo said. Ning looked to his left and up, and saw a man and woman calmly looking down at the fight below them. The man wore a black suit and red tie and looked way too average to have a memorable face. The woman on the other hand wore a white dress with transparent white sleeves and had crystals glittering all over her clothes. The common-looking man turned his head and looked toward them. His eyes widened a bit and a smile formed on his face. Look who it is, the man of the hour, the man said. He jumped from the second floor and gracefully landed in front of Ning. You must be Ning Ruigong, the new and only SSS-ranked hunter in the world. Ning grabbed the hand that was put in front of him and shook it. Nice to meet you, and who might you be? He asked. The man was taken aback, but he wasn't offended. Instead, he smiled and answered. I am Lee Kuan Yew, leader of the Frost Empire Guild. Nice to meet you too. Ning moved his eyes from him and to the rest of the people. Ah, you must not know them either. Let me introduce you, he said. Guys, stop fighting, we have someone here you need to meet. The two fighters stopped fighting and turned towards Ning. This is Ning Ruigong, the one we've been waiting for, he said. He pointed to the fast-moving young man in a tracksuit. That is Park Hung-jae of the Neo Warriors Guild. He then pointed to the old man in the barrier. This old man is Bai Sang-uk of the Young Korean Guild. Don't ask why he named his guild young while being old. And that is, where did she go? The man looked confused. The woman appeared from behind him and took Ning's hands to shake them. I am Yasu Yun from the Silver Star Guild. I hope you will consider joining my guild, she said with a wide smile on her face. Ning smiled back at her too. I definitely would have, he said. But since you tried to charm me, I don't think I'll consider it anymore. The girl's face froze a bit before going back to the smile. Whatever do you mean? Am I so beautiful that you mistook it for some charm? She asked. You've already been figured out, Su Yun. You should forget about charming him, Min-soo said from the side. Tisk. You must have told him about our powers beforehand, she said with an annoyed face. Kim Min-soo said nothing. She was just surprised that Ning had been able to recognize charming skills being used on him, and had somehow negated the effects. How did he negate charming skills from someone that has SSS-ranked mana? She wondered. Lee Kuan Yew looked rather surprised but in a happy way. He smiled at Ning and turned to look at the two that had started going at each other again. If I were to ask you to fight the two of them one-on-one, could you beat them? He asked. Oi Lee. What are you saying? The young man asked after coming next to him. His speed was fast enough that the rest of them had to force their eyes to keep up with his movement. Park Hung-jae looked at Ning. Don't scare the young kid. He's only just become a hunter, he said. There's no way he can do anything to any of us. We've had way too much experience. Haha, I was just asking, the generic-looking man said. Do you want to try out and see how you fare against them? Not really, Ning said. I don't really have any intention of fighting right now. Anyway, I heard that the director called us. Where is he? Who knows where the old man is, Li said. It will certainly take him some time to come. You should try and compare yourself with him. As far as I know, you have a SSS rank on speed as well, right? I do, Ning said. Is your expertise in just speed as well? Yes, Li answered before Park Hung-jae could see himself. He is one of the fastest people in the world. The fastest in South Korea at least. What the hell? You just want to see how strong he is. If that's the case, then why don't you fight either? If I recall correctly, he has an SSS rank in strength as well, Park said. Well, I could. But the doors to the room opened and an older man, with rough hair that was streaked with white, walked in. He wore a bluish-black suit and had a body that could only belong to people that were into doing a lot of exercise and fitness routines. Are you all gathered already? The man asked as he walked into the hall. Director. Everyone that was gathered respectfully greeted him. The director nodded and stopped right next to Ning. You must be the new hunter. I am Sung Han Sum, the director of the Department of Dungeon Defense. Nice to meet you, he said. Ning shook his hand. The pleasure is all mine, director, he said. I didn't expect you to be so young. I was sure the information said you were 25, the director said. I am, Ning said. My young looks, well, let's just call it a blessing. Why did you call all of us here, director? Was there an emergency? Back asked as he lowered his barrier and walked up front. No, not so much an emergency. I simply wanted to request a few things from all of you, he said. What is it? They asked. You guys must be aware of the S-ranked dungeon that lies by the Jongmyo Shrine, right? He asked. Isn't that the one you refused to sell? Li asked. Not refused to. Because of the nature of its location and the fact that it lies in a shrine makes it impossible for dungeon defense to just outright sell it, the director said. So, what about it? Back asked. For the last year, we have been slowly bleeding S-ranked hunters that have either been taken away by your guilds or the foreign guilds that keep scouting them. As a result, we've been lacking the manpower to quickly clear them, he said. All 5 of the apostles lost their bored look and got serious. Director has the S-ranked dungeon, Kim Min-soo asked. Yes, the director said looking at everyone as he affirmed their thoughts. The S-ranked dungeon near the Jongmyo Shrine has indeed become an SS-ranked dungeon. The 5 apostles looked concerned. You should have told us if you couldn't clear it in time, the woman from the Silver Star Guild said. We could have lent you some aid. Ning looked a little confused. He didn't understand what the problem really was here. I called you all here to come up with a solution for this predicament, the director said. The 5 apostles remained quiet, thinking as to what they could do. Ning was even more confused by this behavior. What's the problem here exactly? He asked. The dungeon has evolved into sulfur monosulfide ranked. Beasts inside of it will now be sulfur monosulfide ranked and the boss will even be SSS ranked. The people who can possibly clear it stand in this room alone, Li said. Since there are so few of us, we won't be able to continuously clear the dungeon enough for it stabilizes and not turn into an SSS ranked dungeon. If that happens, we might as well kill ourselves. No, I understand that part, Ning said. I realize how hard an SS ranked dungeon can be for the hunters. What I'm confused about is why are we even trying to come up with a solution since the solution is obvious. It's not that we don't know of a solution, but rather that the solution has to be the last thing we possibly do. After all, if we get rid of the dungeon, we lose a massive source of money, ores, and monocores for the country, Back said. Here's what we should do. Director, the young man in the tracksuit spoke. We will go into that dungeon and bring out the sulfur monosulfide ranked monocores. With that, we should be able to grow new SS ranked hunters soon enough. That way, they will be able to help us in the dungeon too. Yes, we should do that, the rest of them agreed as well. Ning sighed. His plan to just get rid of the dungeon was not accepted, but how could they? Doing so would be crippling the country in their eyes. They would rather make this risky play with lives at stake than live a life with no risk at all. There's nothing I can do then, he thought. Can the 5 of you work with each other? The director asked the apostles. We've worked on multiple occasions. We should be able to fight with each other easily, Li said. Although, it might be hard if we were to add this young brother into our group. Do you mind asking him and Hung Jye to have a mock battle to see how he does? What do you say, young man? Do you want to have a mock battle? The director asked after listening to Lee. You don't have to agree, but I would appreciate it if you did. I will have to make the decision on whether or not to send you to the dungeon, and it will honestly make it easier for me. Ning sighed. It's okay. I can fight, he said. But would it be alright if I fight him instead? Lee looked surprised at Ning picking him. Huh, why me? He asked. Since you kept suggesting it, I think it would be better if we fought. It doesn't look like Brother Park is that excited about our fight, so we should fight instead, Ning said as he gave a smug smile towards Lee. Park started laughing after hearing that and kept saying that Lee was getting called out by a newbie. Lee looked uncomfortable and tried to find a way out of his current situation. I'm sorry, you can't fight me. My strength is too high and you might get hurt, the man said. Oh, don't worry, Brother Lee, it's a mock battle anyway. The chances of us getting hurt is non-existent, right? Besides, we can have Brother back here stop us with his magic if we get too into it, Ning said. You will help us at least with that, right? Of course, the middle-aged man named Back said. Go on, Lee. You have nothing to worry about. Lee was starting to silently get angry as he had been pulled into a situation he hadn't expected to get into. Fine, he said as he resigned to fate, but don't go crying if I end up hurting you by mistake. As I said, I find it hard to control my strength. It's all right, Brother Lee. I'm sure you will subconsciously keep it in mind not to hurt me even by accident, Ning said as he slowly walked into the center of the gymnasium. I will need you to have a mock battle with young Ning after this. Since his speed is said to be rather good, I want to see just how good it is when compared to an apostle, the director said. Sure thing, Director, Park said. He was more than happy to fight Ning so long as it was Lee who had to go at it first. Ning stood in front of Lee with his hands behind his back and waited for the man to start. You better get in a stance, we will be starting, Lee said. I'm already in stance, Ning said while remaining straight with his hands behind his back. That's no stance. That's full of openings, the man said. Then I dare you to make use of the openings, Ning said. Arrogance, huh? That's not a bad feature to have as a hunter. Unfortunately, that is also the downfall of many, Lee said. So, when are we going to fight exactly? Ning asked. You just keep stalling. HMPH, here I come then. Lee dashed forward with a relatively swift movement as he arrived in front of Ning. He punched Ning, targeting his chest. Ning could feel the force behind the attack, and while Lee was holding back, this was certainly enough to fracture the ribs of any normal SSS-ranked fighters. In fact, with the current force, Lee could break his own ribs as well. Still, Ning stood there, remaining nonchalant. He brought his left hand from behind him, which was already turned into a fist, and punched Lee's fist with his own. The force behind his punch was barely stronger than Lee's, so when the first exchange was done, Ning appeared to have won by a hair's margin. Once the exchange was done, Ning's hand went back behind his back as he waited for Lee to attack again. Lee's ego had been hurt. He had always thought of himself as one of the strongest people in the entire world in terms of strength. His physical capabilities were, in some parts, a reason why South Korea was considered to be the country that was doing the best in the apocalypse. Certainly, the other countries might have more apostles and hunters, but he doubted he could lose against anyone in a one-on-one fight. So, when Ning won while he was holding back and was smug about it, Lee started getting angry. Now that he knew Ning was strong, he was going to hold back even less. He dashed forward again and punched once more. This time, the strength was about a third more than the last time. Just as he was about to land, Ning's hands came from behind him and stopped him. He even took a step back from the force. How? Lee couldn't understand. It wasn't just that Ning had barely better strength than him that surprised him. It was the fact that Ning was pulling out so much strength from a stance and attack posture that gave him no advantage. Lee started worrying. Is he stronger than me? He held back no longer and went at Ning with his full strength. The other 5 in the room recognized that as well as they heard the thump beneath his feet. Lee, stop! The director shouted. Kim Min-soo started her summoning process, Baek and Soo-yun started casting skills to stop Lee, and Park moved so that he could divert Lee's attack. However, none of them were fast enough, and from the looks of it, neither was Ning. Lee's punch landed on Ning's chest as the sound of the clash sent the air rumbling with reverberance. Everyone was forced to close their ears as it sounded like a lightning bolt had struck right next to them. A moment later, however, there was nothing but silence in the room. All eyes fell on the blood on the ground, and the crumbled-up Li, who cried in a fetal position because his hands had been mangled. Ning looked at the man that groveled in pain beneath him and said, "My bad, I blocked too hard." The four apostles and the director looked stunned as they watched the bleeding hand of the one that was supposed to be the victor of this little mock battle. He was the one that was supposed to test the newcomer, not be the one that tried his hardest and still failed. How could that make sense? As the group kept staring, Li looked up with vicious anger in his eyes. "I will kill you," he shouted at Ning. Ning looked at him and smirked. "You already tried," he said, and put on a mocking smile as he said, "and you failed." Li thought of attacking again, but his broken arm hurt just too much to even move it for now. "Back, heal him or something," the director said as he was the first to be out of their startled state. I can't. My healing skill is atrocious. I can maybe only close up the wound at best," he said. "Maybe Su Yun can do better." "I don't really have any healing capabilities," the girl in the glittering white dress said. "Wait, let me call someone from my guild. She's a great healer." The girl pulled out a smartphone from what seemed to be an inventory slot that was given to all apostles by their gods. Before she could find the number to call, however, Ning spoke. "You guys don't have to worry. I'm a healer too," he said. He reached towards Li's crushed hand. Li flinched and moved backward out of instinct, but Ning still reached it. Then, a yellow light glowed from his hands, and at the next moment, Li was healed. Li still felt the residual pain, at least he thought he felt it, but the hand was fully healed. Kim Min Soo looked at the healed hand with a look of shock that could not make head or tail of what had just happened. How many different skills does this man have? She thought. From manipulating rocks to teleporting, to rusting metals to now healing. These were more skills than one could possibly have. And somehow, they were all of higher grades as well. "You're fine, right?" Ning asked Li, who was on the ground. "I think that concludes our mock battle, does it not?" He then turned towards the director. "Do I have to have a mock battle with him too, or can we just go and deal with this SS rank dungeon situation?" he asked. "And no, you don't have to prove anything anymore," the director said. "You have proven enough. Although, I hope you have some experience in clearing dungeons." "Don't worry, director," Kim Min Soo said. "He's already solo cleared an S-rank dungeon of ours yesterday. At the very least, he has experience in that." "Good. That's good to hear," the director said. "All right, since we've made sure that you all are ready and willing to do this, let's go to the dungeon." "Okay." Everyone except Li replied and started walking. Li was simply too shaken to say anything, but he also followed behind. "Oh right, director. We didn't talk about compensation, did we?" Park said. "We can expect some good compensation, can't we? We will divide whatever loot you can find inside the dungeon in 8 ways. I will be keeping 2, and you 6 will take the remaining. On top of that, we will give each of you 100 million won per dungeon run," the director said. "Huh? Not bad," Bak said. "I would love a little more though," Park said. "We are risking our lives after all." "Why not split it in 7 ways instead of 8, Su Yun asked. "I'm fine with it," Kim Min Soo said. Li simply didn't speak at all, and Ning had no opinions on it. It wasn't like he needed any of it anyway. "No, I cannot give any more than what I already have. That is what you will get. If you wish to get out of getting potential SS-ranked monostones, then you can refuse the job," the director said. "Tisk. Fine, fine. You don't have to get angry," Park said. There was a van waiting for them which quickly took them on site. Ning walked out of the van by a narrow road. On one side was the wall that protected the Dongmyo Shrine's dungeon, and on the other were the broken houses that had been abandoned post-dungeon break. Ning could only wonder how many people had to die before one of these 5 came and saved them. So many deaths that could have just been prevented had the constellations bothered even a little bit, Ning thought. With such thoughts in mind, he couldn't help but get angry. "Let's go inside," the director said, taking them through the gate as many other hunters and guards that were gathered there looked at the 6 of them in awe. The 5 apostles were rarely seen together, so it was no surprise that they would be shocked to see them all gathered in one location. Many were also confused as to who Ning might be to walk along with the apostles and the director, but a little bit of thought quickly told them who he most likely was. Ning looked around at the mostly destroyed shrine and pathway. Right next to one of those shrines was a glowing portal that gave off a different energy from any Ning had seen before. "It's definitely a higher tier than the one before," he thought to himself. The dungeon has been barred from entering the moment we were notified of its rank change. No hunter has gone in before this, so you will all be treading in some new place we have no idea about, the director said. Won't it help to know what kind of dungeon it was when it was rank S? Ning asked. No, Park said from the side. The dungeons change every time they evolve, so each dungeon has a different location. Which is to say, Back continued from where Park left off. We're completely in the dark here and will have to tread every step carefully. The 5 apostles stood in front of the sulfur monosulfide rank dungeon with their eyes wide and a trepidation in their hearts that they had not expected to feel before. What's wrong? You're not backing out now, right? The director asked. No, Su Yun said. It's just, let me leave for a moment. I need to consult with my God if there is any help he can give me before I approach this. Me too, Back said. I should probably do that too, Park said as well. Soon, all 5 of them were gone with Ning and the director was left alone to wait for a while. So, young man, it seems we are alone, the director said. It seems so indeed, Ning said. The director looked at him for a moment before asking, Are you really 25? You look so young, he said. Haha, I get that a lot. People are usually surprised when I tell them my age. They never seem to be able to tell that I am much older than I appear to be, Ning said. By the way, you didn't just suddenly awaken as a hunter, right? What were you doing before deciding to be a hunter? The director asked. Oh, I was doing nothing really. Just going around the world visiting different places, Ning said. I probably would have continued if I didn't realize I had some kin in South Korea. When I realized the situation here, I decided to become a hunter. Who would have thought I would become an SSS-ranked hunter? The director got curious after listening to Ning's words. You must have had some bountiful encounters during your travel, he said. Haha, you could say that, Ning said as his eyes slowly shifted toward his right. He could feel a presence there, watching him intently. Huh. So the constellations actually came, huh? He thought. He didn't give his mind to them as long as they weren't interrupting him. He talked with the director for a while longer before the apostles finally decided to show their face again. I am going in, Back said as soon as he returned. I have my God's blessing, Lee said. The others said similar things to denote that they were also allowed to enter. Each time they said that the person would sneakily look at Ning with a weird look on their face. Perhaps the only person without such a weird look was Kim Min-soo, and that was only because she was used to Ning's existence. As for the rest, they were only just learning about something called system. If you are all ready, then you can enter, the director said. Everyone nodded and one by one they entered the dungeon. As soon as they appeared, they landed on some sort of swamp with their legs sinking nearly halfway deep. Ew! I've got mud all over my dress, Su Yun said as she tried to pull up her white dress, but it was already brown from the mud. Kim Min-soo looked disgusted as well. The men were disgusted as well, but the fear they felt at the new dungeon made them accept the situation relatively early. Ning looked around the swamp. There was a white haze around them that was limiting their visibility by a lot. Still, Ning could see better than the others. Once he released his spiritual sense, he could see everything. The swamp ran forever. In fact, the entire dungeon was nothing but a swamp. There were trees, most of which were rotting, as well as aquatic plants that grew in the swamp. Most pathways were either muddy or mossy, making the terrain incredibly hard to walk on. On top of that, there were many monsters lurking around the trees, or underneath the water, just a few paces away from them, hiding behind the white haze. Ning smiled when he realized this was going to be fun. Back created a barrier around himself as he slowly floated above the swamp, sitting inside the barrier. Su Yun used some sort of skill and made herself light as a feather and floated on top of the water. Lee and Park had nothing they could really do to leave the swamp, so they just remained in it. Kim, however, did, and so she used her own skill. Dark energy flowed down her palms as they entered the water below her. The water turned dark as an enormous hand appeared from beneath her, holding her up. An orc skeleton? Lee asked. The bone orc took Kim and placed her on its shoulder so that she was no longer in the water. Ning looked at her curiously, wondering if she had summoned the skeleton or just brought it out from someplace where she was keeping it. Let's move, Back said. But be careful, who knows what this wretched place has for us. The others nodded and walked through the swamp. Barely a few meters away, Su Yun shouted. Heads up. There's a monster in the mud in front of us, she said. Move. Park said as he punched in front of him. His punch brought forth an unimaginable amount of wind with it that it felt physically impossible to have come without any sort of magical spell. The gloomy haze in the air moved away for a moment, giving them all a clearer view of the swamp ahead of them. At the same time, the wind pushed the water as well as the mud aside, showing scales of something beneath the mud. Suddenly, the beast woke up, large as a train, and it loomed over the six. Ning looked at the beast with a look that seemed to be thinking about something he had forgotten long ago. "Dragonborn centipede," he said softly as the information about the beasts in his mind gave him the answer he desired. The beast in front of them was a giant, towering centipede, the head of which lay beyond the haze. Its body was clad in blue dragon scales, with talons instead of arms. If not for the centipede-like head or the many limbs, this beast would be easily mistaken for a dragon. And this was only the first encounter in the sulfur monosulfide ranked dungeon. What the hell is that? Lee looked up in half horror and half disgust. He had never seen something like this. Is that a centipede? What are those arms? Kim couldn't help but ask. How are you guys seeing anything? This goddamn haze won't let me see much, Park said. Are those dragon scales? Those look just like the thing that damn Aaron grows when he fights, doesn't it? Back asked while remaining inside of his barrier. Those are indeed dragon scales, Ning said. That's a dragonborn centipede, which is only capable of appearing in places where a dragon has bled. Be careful now, this is a dragon's dungeon. While the others looked scared and confused, Ning remembered back to the fond memory of being around the dragon that called him a worm. He wondered if this dragon was anything like her. Since they were both dragons that used mana, they had to be at least similar in some ways. How the hell do you know that? Lee asked from the side. I can tell you either about the centipede or about how I have the knowledge I do. Choose one, Ning said. The 5 apostles grumbled, and some muttered a few words, one of which was, system. Tell us about the centipede, Su Yun said while floating atop the water and looking at the centipede. Dragons never stop growing, Ning said. They are in some ways immortal creatures, and as such as long as they are alive, they continue getting bigger. The same is true for any creature that has dragon blood in it. Only difference is, the creature will only have a limited lifespan and will have no control over its own size, which dragons can freely manipulate. The apostles looked confused. What the hell does that have to do with the current situation? Kim asked with a bit of anger in her voice. What I'm trying to say is, a dragon-blooded beast's strength can be judged by its size, Ning said. Judging as such, the centipede is a high-sulfur monosulfide ranked beast for certain. You will have to be ready for it. The people suddenly grew tense and looked at the beast that rose high in the air. Don't move just yet, Ning said. It lacks proper vision, and can only identify moving objects. Since we are mostly motionless at the moment, it can't see us. But, the moment we start moving, it will attack. Then let's attack it, Lee said. We should, but there is something else you need to know, which thinking about now, I should have led with this information, Ning said. What information? Su Yun asked. That centipede, it's poisonous. With dragon blood in it, its poison generation is so high that it can't keep it contained. More than likely, you will find its entire face clad in poison, Ning said. I see, Bak said. Then let me begin with my magic. And, Ning continued, stopping back in his tracks. Since the beast continues to secrete poison even while sleeping, the place it stays in is usually poisonous as well. The apostles grew tense as they looked below them at the swamp that was there from the moment they had arrived. It's poisonous? They asked. Yes, Ning said, and you might want to know that it is not just the water in the swamp that is poisonous, but also the water that evaporates from it and condenses in the air. What are you? The others got suspicious of his line of information. It's a slow-acting poison though, and it won't affect you if you have either a strong body or a dense amount of mana in your body. However, if you do have a body that is neither strong nor full of mana, you will start seeing the symptoms, Ning said. Your body will itch, your scalp will tingle, and, he turned towards Park. Your vision will get cloudier by the second, making you think this haze is only growing thicker by the second. The 4 apostles suddenly moved their eyes to look at Park as well, whose eyes moved around, but due to how cloudy it looked for him, he could barely see anything. No way, Park said. Am I going blind? The others waited for Ning to answer. Not really, Ning said. Just have someone use a cleansing spell on you. As long as it is a high-tier spell, or used multiple times, the poison will be purged from your body. In fact, let me do it right now, Ning said and moved his arms. The moment his arm moved, the centipede did too. It saw the motion and came to attack. However, Ning didn't dodge or do anything. A spell circle grew in front of his arm as a radiant yellow light fell on Park, healing him instantly. The centipede's massive, purple-colored face showed itself as it barely its fangs at Ning. The beast crashed onto Ning, sending shockwaves through the water and air, pushing all but Back, who was inside a barrier, away. The skeleton orc fell, but it was large enough that Kim didn't fall onto the water. Su Yun simply floated behind, and Li's body was strong enough to fight off the little poison in him for now. Back managed to catch Park in another barrier before he was pushed away too far. They all quickly turned to look at Ning to see his situation. Li was even hoping to see him hurt. However, they saw a person who stopped the massive beast with a single arm. "I've wasted too much time explaining about a single beast, haven't I?" Ning asked. "My apologies. I usually can't keep track of time as well without help from someone else." He turned around towards the centipede and used some sort of power. As the group watched, the centipede grew bigger and bigger, until it was so big that it died and then started rotting. The centipede's body fell onto the ground, with its mana stone being the only thing that remained. Ning picked up the stone and looked ahead. A smile formed on his face. "The dragon is waiting for us." The apostles spent no time preparing to the best they could. Li brought out some gauntlets that he wore. Park brought out some daggers that did not reflect anything. Back and Su Yun brought out staff of their own. Back's staff was a long, straight stick with a giant, circular crystal at the end. Su Yun's staff was an unusually cut gem that seemed to be clutched from some tendrils that grow out of a long crooked stick. Kim Min Soo was the only one that did not bring anything except for a mask that she seemed to have in her inventory. When asked why she didn't take out anything, she said that she already had. If she was in danger, only then would her protection show its face. Ning walked forward while the rest of them felt worried about doing so. The water was poison, the air was poison, and there was a freaking dragon waiting for them at the end of the journey. That was simply walking onto the jaws of death itself. Ning looked back at the people that weren't moving at all. "Don't be afraid now. You have your items, don't you? We need to keep moving," he said. "But, the poison," Park said. Ning shrugged. "Don't ask me. You're the ones who didn't plan ahead and are now poisoned," he said. "Don't you people have some healers in your guild?" "We do, but this is not a place we can just bring them. With our own safety at risk, it would be reckless of us to bring anyone else," Su Yun said softly. "And none of you have healing spells?" Ning asked. "I do, but it's not of a very high grade. It can only heal minor wounds," Su Yun said. "Sigh, just keep moving. I will heal you if you get too wounded or poisoned," Ning said and started walking. With no other choice, the rest of them started following him as well. After just a minute of walking, another beast arrived. Although, Ning couldn't tell if he should call it a beast or not. What appeared was a rotting tree with vines around it swinging like arms. Was this a plant or an animal? Or was that distinction itself useless when dealing with things that were not normal? "You guys want to try fighting that?" Ning asked. "What is this thing?" Back asked. It's a swamp tree monster. No proper names as there are way too many variations of it to give them all names. It's just a tree that has gained some consciousness and can move thanks to mana," he said. "What can it do?" Kim asked. "Are the apostles really that useless that they want the answers to everything?" Ning asked. He wanted to see what they could all do, so he wasn't going to answer everything. "Fine, let me go at it," Park said. He prepared for a second before moving. He blitzed his way through the swamp, arriving next to the beast. There was a dagger in his hand which he used to cut the beast. Ning saw that Park's body was enforced with mana to make sure that his body didn't break under his own speed. The dagger attacks left some marks on the monster, and while they weren't powerful, soon enough the number of attacks stacked up to an incredible amount, and the monster fell to the ground. Ning moved his hands and quickly healed Park, who was once again getting poisoned by the poison fog. "Thanks," he said while being a little out of breath. "I didn't expect this to take so much out of me." "Yeah, it takes quite a bit out of you, especially since you were breathing in the poison fog," Ning said. "Shit, I don't know how we would be able to handle such a dungeon if you didn't come," Park said. "Thanks to you being here, at least I'm not useless." "Alright, grab that mana stone and we can start moving," Ning said. After a while, they met another beast. This time, it was a giant snake that seemed to have dragon scales too. This time around, Li decided to fight, He needed to get back his honor as well as his own sense of self-worth. If he continued feeling useless, he would never actually be able to be useful. The snake was strong, but Lee still managed to defeat it. If it were just physical strength, Lee would have certainly lost, but thanks to him being able to use mana to bypass some of the snake's defense, he won. However, even if he did win, it became a little hard for the group just to dig out the mana core from the snake, as the snake's skin was quite tough. Back used some sort of magic to create an illusory sword that cut the snake multiple times, finally getting access to the mana core inside. Next up, they came across a smaller beast, a far smaller beast. There was a blue beast in front of them, sitting in the poisoned water. It was about the size of a young crocodile, or maybe the size of a Komodo dragon. It was mostly blue except for some reddish tips. Its body seemed to be soft, as if slime, and had nothing to it that would make one think that it was related to a dragon. However, the moment they even got closer, the beast moved. Its mouth opened and fired a massive amount of water toward the group. Everyone panicked for a moment, thinking that the water was poisonous, but it was not. Still, the force at which water was being blasted at them was quite strong. Back created a barrier around all 6 of them, protecting even Ning from the blast of water. He simply waited for the water fountain to be over, which surprisingly went on for nearly 5 minutes. Only after the blast was over, were they able to see the tired beast in front of them that seemed to have given its everything to attack them. Now, the blue axolotl was vulnerable, and would easily die to Back. The axolotl was rather easy to defeat once you survived its initial attack. Without mana and a rather weak body, the axolotl died to a single strike from Back's magic attack. After that, Back pulled the mana stone from the beast's body toward him with magic. It was quite weak physically, he said amusingly. Hopefully, we keep getting that monster. Well, that's unfortunate, Ning said. There is another centipede to fight. Who wants to try their hands at it this time around? Or should I fight it again? I will, Kim said. I have to earn my share of the mana stone anyway. Great. Ning aid. It's just in front of us. Kim moved ahead a bit and stopped before turning around. How do you know there is a centipede there? She asked. I know where every beast is in this dungeon, Ning said. I could tell you all right now, but there is no fun in that. We're not here to have fun. It's a life or death situation, Lee said. Well, you might not be, but I surely am, Ning said. If it wasn't for fun, I would have cleared the dungeon already. They all frowned when they heard that. Kim was the only one who saw the truth in those words and how frightening that made Ning. Given how fast Ning had cleared the S-rank dungeon to get that fruit, if he was taking his time with this dungeon, then it was because he did not worry about anything at all. To begin with, if he could easily defeat any SS-ranked beast with a single touch or easily purge any poison and toxin from himself, or know a vast amount of knowledge about every beast they came across, what was the point of worrying? Kim sighed and turned around before going forward. As she did, a centipede did come out from the ground, looming over her with its height. All of a sudden, dark energy poured out from her feet, turning the entire water black. From the black water came a bone spike that landed on the clear water. Another such spike arrived and landed on another side. More and more spikes continued coming, totaling 8 in the end. Once all 8 bone spikes were out, they pushed on the ground, and out came a massive bone spider about half the size of the standing centipede. Ning got confused for a second. Spiders don't have bones though, he thought as he stared at the thing that Kim had summoned. It looks like she has bone summons, so this must not be something that naturally exists. Did she just make it out of the exoskeleton of a spider? However, when looking at the spider, he couldn't see anything that looked like a spider. It in fact did look like what a spider's skeleton would look like if it did have a skeleton. There was a hollow skull where the eyes went, ribs on its chest, and a vertebra that went all the way to the back. The legs were separated into multiple bones that worked together like normal bones would in a normal limb with bones. The spider moved with incredible grace, laying bone webs on the ground before approaching the centipede. The centipede moved to attack the thing that moved. It slammed against the spider, but the spider wasn't hurt as badly as one would have thought. There were cracks around its body, but other than that, it could move around perfectly, with not a single problem. It laid its bone webs around the centipede, catching it in its web. However, it wasn't strong enough to kill the beast, so out of the darkness below Kim came out 2 bone knights riding horses of bones. They charged toward the centipede and started attacking it. To Ning's surprise, these knights were strong enough to cut through the dragon scales and kill the centipede. Ning stared at the bloody skeleton knights, and some parts of their bodies didn't make sense from a biological perspective. They had bones that humans should not have. What's going on, system? He asked. What are her powers exactly? Less than she is capable of creating beings in the image of monsters and beasts that she has scanned with one of her spells. She can then summon the beast made up of bone using the image she gathered. Greater than. Less than the design of the monsters is mostly dependent on the knowledge of the summoner, so the reason for the weird-looking summons is just her lack of knowledge about a beast's bone structure or lack thereof. Greater than. I see, Ning said softly to himself, finally understanding what was going on. Do you think she has a number on how many she can make? Less than there can be as many as she wants, but the restriction lies in the fact that she consumes mana every time she makes one. The stronger the beast, the more mana she uses, so while she can make many, there is a limit. Greater than. That's still quite good, Ning thought. After the centipede was lost and the mana stone was acquired, the group continued moving. Ning once again had to heal Park since he was being poisoned. Not only him, but the others were also starting to get affected too, so he quickly healed them as well. The group of apostles looked both surprised and confused at the fact that he was using the high-grade spell so many times. They wondered where he was getting all the mana from. The next monster they came across was a blue-scaled lizard perched on a giant, rotting tree. Even with just a look, one could tell that the lizard was poisonous. Don't kill this one, Su Yun said. I can charm it and have it fight for us. Just give me a few minutes. Ning suddenly chuckled. I'm afraid we don't have such free time, he said. Su Yun turned angrily to say that she deserved to fight as well when she saw that Ning was looking somewhere else. Then they heard it, the flapping of massive wings. Even through the haze, the group could see it. The silhouette of a dragon. Stay back, Ning said as he moved ahead. The dragon was approaching and everyone else got scared, so they backed away. The silhouette only got bigger and bigger until it arrived right in front of them, and a single flap of its wings sent the haze away. The blue dragon with massive wings landed on the swamp, sending the swamp water splashing everywhere. Back quickly created a barrier to protect everyone from the poison water as well as the dragon. Somehow, Ning was the only one that wasn't inside the barrier, but he still remained untainted by the water. The dragon crouched down. The dragon was massive, bigger than anything Ning had ever seen. It was even bigger than Daryl or that one draconic beast he had summoned back in Nulwern. The dragon was a typical mana dragon with webbed wings and 2 pairs of limbs. Its face alone was as big as the bone spider that Kim had previously summoned. The blue-scaled dragon stared at them with eyes that surprisingly showed emotion. Can you speak? Ning asked the dragon after seeing it looking at him curiously. The dragon's curiosity only increased when he heard Ning speak in a language that only it knew. How do you know the dragon tongue, tiny human? It asked. Oh, you can speak? Ning said with a surprised expression. He had been fully expecting the beast to not be able to communicate. After all, the intelligence of a beast was usually dependent on the fact of whether or not it had a soul. However, if a dungeon beast had a soul, then either the beasts were getting replaced every time they died, or someone was manipulating souls to keep something alive even after it died. Ning did not believe someone capable of manipulating the soul could exist in this world, so he went with the other option. However, that too didn't make sense as to who could possibly find the same type of monster to swap each time. Did they have a stock anywhere? Why were the monsters with clear intelligence not fighting back? There were many questions, which had made the answer obvious previously. Just like in Genesis, the dungeon was created by someone and the same went for the monsters inside. Every time something died, it would be replaced. However, beasts with intelligence couldn't be created, so the correct answer here was that Ning was missing some information to make sense of his current situation. Tell me, human. Who are you? Do you have any relation to a dragon? The blue dragon asked. No, I don't, Ning said. The other 5 that were staying behind him were getting confused by the situation. Since they could not understand the language, they couldn't tell what they were talking about, only that they were talking. And that was even more confusing as no one had ever seen a dungeon beast that talked. I just know the dragon tongue, Ning said. Who taught it to you? I haven't heard of any dragon being close to the humans enough to teach them our tongue, the dragon said. Nobody, Ning said. I learned it on my own. Tell me, how did you get here? Were you created here? HMPH. You better show respect, tiny human. I can kill you at once if I feel like it, the dragon said. It then looked around the place. I was not created. I do not know why I am here. I only remember waking from my slumber and finding myself in this place. I didn't know where I was and had this strange urge to kill anyone that came here. Do you have any information that can be helpful to me? So, you did have a life before this? Ning asked, ignoring the other questions for now. The dragon got angry seeing Ning dodge the question. No one dares disrespect a dragon, the dragon said. Answer me. Are you the one responsible for me being here? I am not, Ning said. I am also not certain who is. Wait, I will see if I learn something. Ning quickly asked the system, which quickly gave him an answer that surprised him. Well, in some ways, you can say that it just happened randomly. It is just natural that you are here, Ning said. Ning had learned something that bothered him, which he wanted to learn more about, but as of now, he didn't have the time to think about it. At least not inside the dungeon. Clarify, tiny human, the dragon said. Stop calling me tiny human. My name is Ning, use it. Also tell me, what's your name? Ning asked. Sorlasarian Nordos, the dragon said with a puffed-up chest, the youngest dragon of the Nordos family. The dragon's eyes grew vicious. Now, answer me, it said. What can I expect in return for answering you? Ning asked. You dare demand something from me? The dragon cried. Don't tempt my anger, or I will kill you. Kill me? Ning chuckled. Kill me if you can. The dragon growled and opened its mouth to breathe into Ning. However, what came out of its mouth was just a gust of air, along with some dragon spit that couldn't even land on Ning. Ning's eyes went wide. Oh, you held back? He asked. The dragon's eyes narrowed. Why aren't you afraid of me? It asked. I have no reason to, Ning said. The dragon's eyes narrowed for a bit before looking at Ning. Fine, it said. I will tell you what I know, and you tell me what you know. Ning was surprised that the mighty proud dragon managed to calm itself down enough to compromise. Did it realize I was strong? He wondered. Deal, Ning said. Tell me what you think you should be doing. What new knowledge did you wake up in this place with? The dragon thought for a bit. I am the protector of this confined space and I will have to defeat anyone that comes in here, even if it means my own death. You will have to kill anyone? Ning asked with a weird look on his face. That's not something you thought of on your own, right? No, the dragon said. I have those thoughts not because of myself. I see, Ning said. Thankfully, you've been able to control your wits. If the will had fully manifested, you would have likely had a hard time controlling your own thoughts. What will? The dragon asked. Explaining that is a little hard, Ning said as he thought a bit. Tiny human. Don't you dare try and go without answering me? I will rip your flesh apart with my... No, I'm not saying I won't answer. Explaining will be hard because you don't know what I'm talking about in the slightest, but I will explain, Ning said. Just, not right now. Why not? The dragon asked. This place is poisonous and I don't want to continue healing them, Ning said. So, let's talk after they've left this place. Are they weak? The dragon asked as it looked towards the apostles behind Ning. For some reason, the apostles were very scared by the dragon's gaze. It was as if they were looking at a figure who could only be beaten by their god and no one else. They're quite weak when compared to you, Ning said. We should talk after they leave this done. Ning's voice trailed off as he saw a problem in his plan that he hadn't noticed earlier. Wait, how do you leave a dungeon again? He asked. As far as he knew, the only way to leave a dungeon was if the boss inside the dungeon had died. Did that mean they had to kill the dragon before they left? Ning turned around. Is defeating the boss the only way to leave a dungeon? He asked. They all shook their head. Kim mustered up some courage and spoke. Why, you can use an escape stone too, she said. Escape stone? Do you guys have any? He asked. They all quickly checked their inventory and only 2 of them nodded. The rest of them didn't have any escape stones. Why do you not have any escape stones? He asked the remaining 3. We don't usually need it, Park said. After all, we are the strongest people in our guild. So we leave it for some weaker members that need it. You should still keep one, Ning said with an annoyed look. Escape stones are as rare as they are expensive. You can't just get one, and most of the time, it's not even worth it, Bak said. Ning shook his head. In a sense, even if they had escape stones, it wasn't like the problem would have just been solved since he didn't have one himself. He asked the system to see if it could make one, but the escape stones seemed to be made up of mana, and thus his system was useless in that aspect. Whatever, I will think about it later, he thought. For now, he needed to find a way to get out of this place without using an escape stone. System. Any idea how I can get out of here without using escape stones or killing this dragon? Ning asked. There is a way. This dungeon is tied to its boss. So as long as you get rid of the boss, you can leave this place. What? No, I meant without killing the draw. Ning paused. The system surely wasn't giving him the wrong information. Then there was a way to get rid of the dragon as a boss from this place. Ah, he thought. He quickly turned around towards the dragon. Do you want to get out of this place? Yes. The dragon said enthusiastically. Can you take me out? I can't find a way out of this place. I can, Ning said. But you will have to become my subordinate. Nonsense. I will not become your underling. A dragon looks up to no one, the dragon shouted. Well, then I will have no choice but to kill you so I can leave, Ning said. The air suddenly fluctuated as Ning's cultivation base opened up in full fury, pressing on the dragon. The dragon didn't understand what was happening. After all, it couldn't feel chi at all. Still, it knew that it was in danger. The dragon immediately opened its mouth to attack. It sent a massive blast of water toward Ning. However, all Ning did was move his arms a little, and the water disappeared. In the same instance, the water appeared from the right of the dragon and blasted its body. The dragon handled the water, but it was still surprised by what had happened. As it was confusing, Ning jumped next to it and punched the dragon in the face, sending it flying away. The massive dragon created an earthquake when it landed further away. Waves of swamp water were pushed away, forcing back to focus on his barrier. Ning moved and arrived on top of the dragon's body. Don't randomly attack me, he said. I wasn't going to kill you. What the hell are you? The dragon asked with a fearful expression on its face. I'm really just a human, Ning said. He looked around him and looked at the body of the massive dragon. The dragon was so large that one could play football on its stomach and still have enough place for an audience. You can change your size and shape, right? Become smaller, and if possible, become human, Ning said. The dragon grumbled, not knowing if it should obey Ning's orders or not. If you do that, and become my subordinate, not only can I take you away from here, but I will also help you understand everything you want to know. On top of that, I can even help you improve upon your mana collection ability so you can improve even faster, Ning said. The dragon was starting to wonder if it should do as asked or not. The more he heard Ning, the more he began to feel that it might just be a good idea. If that doesn't persuade you, then you will only have to be my subordinate for 12 years. If you want to leave after that, you are free to leave, Ning said. Are you telling the truth? The dragon asked. I never lie, Ning said. Now, what will be your choice? The dragon was all but persuaded now. What will I have to do if I were to become your subordinate? A dragon has his pride, and you cannot make me do anything that I will not do, it said. Oh, you won't have to do anything really. Maybe help me here and there, help protect my family, and such. Most things will be your choice, Ning said. Make an oath, the dragon said. A blood oath. Ning quickly asked the system to learn what a blood oath was and was surprised to learn what it was. An oath where one person dies if they break it, huh? Not bad, Ning thought amusedly. I accept. Let's make the oath. Ning cut open his palm and dripped blood onto the dragon, who did the same. Then, both of them did a magic ritual where an oath was placed on Ning as per the dragon's request. I'll be calling you Soreless from now on. That's fine with you, right? Ning asked. That's all right, the dragon said. All right, I will do what you say from now on. That's the oath we made after all. Ning smiled. It will be easier if I do this though, he said as he placed his palm on the dragon's stomach. Now, don't resist. Suddenly, a massive amount of energy was pushed into the dragon's body and his mind was overwhelmed. Ning felt the amount of energy draining from his body and couldn't help but be surprised at just how much was needed to dominate a dragon capable of using tier 7 spells. Its RAN was truly quite high. Fortunately, even the massive amount that was taken away from him was basically nothing to him at this point. He simply had way too much energy for his normal needs. Once he was done, Ning got off the dragon. Shrink, he ordered the dragon. Soreless, as he was now called by Ning, shrunk his size until he was no bigger than the axolotl the group had fought just a few moments earlier. Can't you change to a human form? That will help me so much more, Ning said. Sure, Master, Soreless said and quickly changed his form to a young body no older than 12 years old. The young boy was small, slim, had bright blue eyes as well as hair, and was currently naked. Damn it, can't you make yourself some clothes? Ning said in an annoyed manner before creating some clothes to give to the young dragon. The dragon wasn't fazed by Ning's annoyance and quickly wore the clothes. How is this, master? He asked. Not bad, Ning said. But why are you a kid? A kid? Sorlus asked with a confused look. This is what I envisioned myself to be as a dragon. Are you saying you are that young? Ning asked with a hint of surprise. How old are you? I'm only 6,000 years old, master, Sorlus said with a proud face. He was proud of the fact that he had managed to reach tier 7 with mana when he was only 6,000 years old. Compared to normal people, dragons needed a lot of talent and mana to advance, so his being tier 7 was in fact quite a feat. Tier 7, that's SSS ranked, Ning thought. Correlating the actual mage's ranking to a hunter ranking, a SSS rank was the same as a tier 7 mage. From SS down to D were the rest of the tiers from 6 to 1. There was no tier to correspond with the hunter rank E. That was simply because hunters that were ranked E were simply normal people in any world with mana. The only difference between an E-ranked hunter and a normal human was the fact that an E-ranked hunter had been fully acclimated to the mana in the air and had thus formed mana circuits in their body to start accepting more mana. Ning walked up to Sorlus and grabbed him by his underarms before picking him up into the air. Good, he said. Thankfully your weight didn't increase. Let's see if you can go in now. With but a thought, Sorlus simply disappeared in front of Ning. Ning quickly checked the beast space where he had sent Sorlus, and he was in fact there. Nice, Ning thought. Thankfully it works with beasts that have turned to humans. As he thought that, he heard a set of footsteps approaching him and saw the 5 apostles come close. Ning, where's the dragon? Kim asked with a fearful face. Why are you scared? Ning asked when he saw their face. Why did the dragon turn into a kid? Was that your doing? Did you do that? Park asked with a quivering voice. Not only are you strong, but you also have a lot of secrets about you, Su Yun said. Where did that dragon go? Bak asked the same question. Did you not kill it? Don't worry. I've gotten rid of the dragon, so we can leave the dungeon now, Ning said. Leave? How? Bak asked. Ning looked around and even sent his spiritual sense all around the place, but he couldn't find any form of exit at all. That's weird, Ning said. But he had gotten rid of a boss from this dungeon. Did putting Sorlus in his beast space not count? Ning quickly brought Sorlus back outside. Did you want something, master? The dragon asked. At the same time, the 5 apostles backed off instantly and prepared their attacks to fight off the dragon. Ning, are you our ally or our enemy? Kim asked as dark energy dripped from her palm, falling onto the surface of the water underneath. Ning looked at the situation and sighed. He didn't think about the apostles for now and turned towards Sorlus. So, the dungeon didn't disappear even when I put you away. It seems the beast space counts as if you were still part of this dungeon. So, I'm going to send you someplace else for the time being, he said. Oh, where? Sorlus asked. Before even answering Sorlus, Ning had to ask him. Can you breathe in outer space? It wasn't until Sorlus found himself in this empty void with no light that he understood why Ning had asked such a question. He quickly held his breath as he truly was in outer space. Ning suddenly felt the space tremble when he put Sorlus into his own world. The hell? He thought when he sensed that. He could understand why the portal had appeared next to them. That was his purpose in hiding Sorlus after all, but he couldn't understand why whatever was happening was happening. Well, we might have to leave quickly, Ning said to the 5 apostles who were looking at him with curious and suspicious eyes. Ning couldn't help but smile when he saw that. You must be eager to go and tell your gods about what you saw here today, aren't you? The others cringed a bit when they heard that. I'm afraid I can't really let you guys show everything, Ning said. I will have to manipulate your memories a little.